and welcome to another interview on Human. Today we will be interviewing Lisa Russell, a woman who has dedicated her life to the art of storytelling through way of filmmaking. She brings to life many stories that speak about certain things that happen around the world, such as climate change in Africa and genocidal acts that have left the survivors pretty traumatized. Tonight, we will find out what her story is here on Human. Amazing.
We did it.
We did it. We did it. It works.
For a minute, you were not showing up, and I thought, we're like now backwards, but I see you, you see me.
Ah,
We did
the importance of
it.
seeing one another
Yes.
as humans.
And I got to
Yes,
refill my
indeed.
coffee.
Indeed. This is great. This is great news. Let me actually take these things out real quick. But without further ado, for those who don't know you, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. So, greetings. Calling in from Mombasa, Kenya. My name is Lisa Russell. I am an Emmy award-winning filmmaker. Here's the proof. Woo! And I have spent the last 20 years really working in the UN space as a contracted filmmaker, a curator, and really pushing for the idea that artists and creatives should have a role in global diplomacy spaces. I
Mm,
genuinely believe that if artists and storytellers and creators had more power and support and funding, our world would be in a much better place. So I kind of
mm.
advocate for artist representation, artist rights, systems change, but a lot of times within the UN space, which confuses people, I think, but we got to fight from the outside and the inside.
I love the way that you just framed that. And we never know where the journey will take us. I hope, or I'm aiming for human to be something that impacts the world on in a positive way on a major
Yeah,
level, right? There's a
right.
lot of layers to human. People are only seeing certain layers. There's a lot of private layers also included
Yep.
that definitely hone the aspect of what does it look like to literally change the world. And I've also come to the conclusion that certain types of help cannot be spoken about, but actually
Mm,
just needs to be done. Right? I was never a person that
I like
helped
that.
people for show. I always helped people
Right.
because I really saw that there was something that needed to be done, and I stepped up and did it. But this is not about myself. This is about you. And
Well,
so
it's
what I
about
wanted
both
to
of
do,
us.
this is true. We're
It's a
both human
conversation.
too.
We are.
Yes, it is. But I don't like to speak only but so much because I never want to take it off of, you as the person that's being interviewed. You're coming on to share your life with me, and I take that very seriously, actually.
Thank you.
Um, you're very welcome. No problem. I've dedicated my life to this. What I wanted to say, ask was first is so I read your bio and I started coming up with these questions. And one of the first questions I came up with, what is your ethnicity? I did gather, I sensed like you were Indonesian and Kenyan, but I didn't want to make that assumption without asking.
Yes, I am Chinese American, no Kenyan,
Okay.
but I live in Kenya because I got stuck here during COVID and thought I would only be here for a couple months. And that turned into 2.5 years. I was out of New York. And when I got back to New York, I got kicked out of my 24-year apartment in Brooklyn that I loved.
Mm,
And I was like, I can't really, I lost my savings. I mean, my story is not unique. If you work in an industry where you have to travel and you can't travel, I lost work, I lost savings, I lost all of it. So I said, you know what? I have a life now in East Africa. Let me come back here, and I love it here. And I mean, I didn't foresee what was going to happen with the United States going through what it's going through right now, but I am very happy that I am here.
I'm happy
But
that you're
yeah,
here
so
too.
on my mother's side, I'm Chinese. My grandmother was Chinese. My mother was half. I'm a quarter. And then on my father's side, there is like Scottish and Irish and whatever. But I have my Caucasian grandfather's last name,
Mm.
so I don't have the, I don't sound Asian, or my name doesn't.
Understood.
Yeah,
Hmm. Russell, yes,
yeah.
indeed. I wanted to
Hmm.
say that I don't think a lot of us did foresee what the United States or the direction is going in, just to kind of pause there for a second and drift over that subject just for a little bit.
Yep.
Um, I did since I was younger, and I warned people a lot, like something's coming. I used to come across lots of information. For those who are watching the interview who don't know me, I was homeless for 15 years. And during
Wow.
those 15 years, yeah, like I said, once again, I'm not going to get real deep into my story, but I just will say that during that time, I did discover a lot of information that people with so-called conspiracy theories, but these
Hmm.
theories eventually turned out to be true, right? So, but
Yeah,
the
there
next,
was, let me jump on that real quick,
hmm
because spending so much time on the African continent, you got to hear different stories about, for example, Gaddafi, like what happened to him. And I met some of his descendants in Tanzania who opened my eyes to really what Gaddafi was trying to do for the continent. And that if he had succeeded in introducing a new gold dinar currency, he would have flipped world economic order, so they had to kill him. And now we're seeing the same threats being made to Ibrahim Traore. I don't know how to say his last name. And we're seeing a stronger Pan-African movement, which is, I joke, I'm like, I'm not African, but I'm Pan-African. I'm like all for what is going on the continent. And it's exciting to actually be here and be here at this time that things are really, I think, changing for the continent. And
mm,
I said, actually, I was supposed to head back to New York on April 20th. I was supposed to speak at a conference at Yale,
mm,
which I love, this
mm,
conference I speak at every year. I was like, I don't feel safe going back to the United States because I spoke up a lot about Gaza, a lot. And I fear that they'll find any reason to give me a hard time. And because I don't have a home there anymore, I don't have an apartment there, I just am like, it's too risky. So I joke
mm.
with my African friends here. I was like, could you ever imagine a day where I would say, here I am, an American in Kenya, feeling more safe in Kenya than I do America? But I do.
Wow.
I do. Yeah.
I'm still in America, and I'm making plans to leave myself. Um,
I'll be
we'll
your
see
hostess.
how those
Come to
things
Kenya.
go. This will be
Yeah.
nice. I hope to connect with you after the interview and speak with you in a more,
Yeah.
deeper fashion. But I wanted to
Sure.
be respectful to your time, plus those who will be tuning in along the way. And let's
Yep.
continue with the interview.
Sure. Let's do it.
Where are you originally from?
I grew up in California,
Mm,
and then I went to school in California. And then after that, I went to the East Coast and I bounced around a bit. I was working in a war zone. I went to London. I was in Boston. I kind of jumped around until I found Brooklyn. And Brooklyn, back in the mid to late 90s, was the place people are like, what are you doing? And if you're going to live in New York City, why are you not living in Manhattan? But there was
mm,
something I really loved about Brooklyn, and I'm so glad I didn't get convinced to leave, because the culture, the arts, the people there really shaped me, not just personally, but also how I pursued my career as a storyteller
mm,
working around the world. So I was around a lot of poets, DJs, activists, people of color, all backgrounds. I was not in Manhattan, you know, in the Upper West Side, Upper East Side, that I think would have shaped me into something that is not really who I am.
Mm,
So fast forward, are you crazy to live in Brooklyn, especially on Myrtle Avenue, that we call it Murder Avenue and this and that. And it was crazy in the 90s. It was crazy. But, fast forward 10 years later, people that were criticizing me were like, guess who just bought a a brownstone in Fort Greene? And I was like, yeah. So I was there at the best time. And I'm so glad that I had that life experience. Yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn as well, born, raised in
Ah,
Queens.
okay,
So
born
I'm
and
from New York.
raised.
Yes, I'm born in
Nice. Okay.
Brooklyn, raised in Queens, and when I fell homeless, I stayed in Brownsville, East New York,
Yep.
um, and
That's a,
Bed-Stuy, to be honest.
okay.
I've seen a lot
Mm,
of things. I was just telling one of the people that I live with a very
mm-hmm,
intense story that unfortunately I'm not going to repeat here. It's a little heavy, to be honest,
mm.
but I will say I've seen my fair share and lived through my fair share of
I
wonderful
bet.
moments
Brownsville's no joke.
and also challenging moments as well.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be here today. I currently stay in Texas, and I
Okay.
wouldn't change that. I like where I'm at in life,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
can't say I owe it entirely to Texas without also giving myself credit. But I do like the peace that I have in the neighborhood in which I live. You know,
Good. Great.
so
Fantastic.
so what was it like being raised? Well, you sound like you bounced around a lot, so it's hard to hit like a specific pinpoint, of being like, what was it like being raised there? That's usually one of the questions that I do ask just to tap into but what was it like growing up is what I will say.
Yeah.
Moving around and experiencing different cultures and different modes of life. What was
Right.
that like for you?
So to clarify, I did not move around when I was young. I moved around after I went to college. I was the
Okay.
first person in my family to go to college, and I went to Jamaica and I went to Mexico and a couple of other places, and I just was like, I grew up so sheltered. I mean, this is also kind of heavy, but when I was young, we lived with a very abusive, my father was very abusive towards my mom, tried to kill her a couple times, beat her, crazy, kidnapped my brother at some points. So my mother decided one night in the middle of the night she would take us, and we disappeared, and I lived my childhood in hiding. So it
Mm,
was very scary. I was scared every time my mom left the house that my father was going to find her and kill her or us. And so I lived a very, very sheltered childhood. My grandmother, who lived with us, who helped take care of us, was also schizophrenic. So she would talk to walls, and like reality was like you never knew what was real, what wasn't. And maybe that's why I gravitated towards documentary filmmaking, because I like to be grounded in truth and reality, because I
mm,
think it was difficult when I was young. So once I started traveling, I realized that is all I wanted. I didn't need money. I didn't need a nice house. I didn't need a nice car. I just wanted to travel. But on top of that, I was also a hip hop dancer, and my mother didn't want me to be an artist of any kind. So I was going to do my studies in college, but then sneaking off and performing and doing dance stuff. And then at some point, I just went academic, and then I kind of came full circle back into doing arts and whatever in the UN setting. So it kind of all makes sense now. Like if you would have asked me a long time ago, what are you doing? What is all this? Like you're all over the place. I was stressed. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And so looking now that I'm older, looking back, I realized every single thing I did led me to what I'm doing now, which is what I'm supposed to be doing. So to give you an example, I played piano, I was a dancer, I painted, and I drew. All of those three things helped me in my film career. So drawing gave me the perspective of framing shots, so I shoot my own films, right?
mm,
Dance gives you rhythm, which editing is a lot of rhythm. Music also. I was really good at science, math and science, and that helped me teach myself how to edit on Avid before there was like YouTube. You know what I mean? So I love talking to young people, especially those who are still trying to figure out who they are, or like are being pressured into like one career or the other, because
Mhm.
I followed my gut or my instinct or whatever you want to call it, and it ended up being exactly where I'm supposed to be. So, and I got paid to travel. Going back to the travel thing, I really wanted to travel. That's all I wanted to do. So I got a job that paid me to travel.
That's what's up. I actually do have a lot of questions laid out concerning that too.
Sure.
Um, but I do want to go in sequential order. So I'll
No problem.
revisit the childhood and say, um,
Okay.
how does, because I read in your bio you talked about abuse and instability. So I want to
Yeah.
ask, how does abuse and instability impact the mind of a younger person based on your own experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think it has a profound effect on children who are in that like development age. So for me, it happened when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I was old enough to remember it. I was old enough to feel it, but I wasn't old enough to really process it. So I try to explain to people like I have separation anxiety, I have general anxiety, and I think that is so deeply ingrained in my psyche or my body that even years of therapy, I don't think is enough. Like it's just who I am. And now I'm old enough to be conscious of it. So I know what the triggers are, I know how to handle it, but it sometimes hits me in times that I'm like, I don't want to feel this way, but I can't help it. And so I encourage anytime I see a woman that's like, I decided to leave this abusive relationship, da 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 da. I'm like, it's not just good for you, but it's really good for your children. Because I think, you know, again, growing up in that environment, like, was not good for my well being. Not at all.
When you talk about, you said separation anxiety, am I
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that has to do with abandonment? Because I feel like I've dealt with abandonment a lot, within my life, especially when my parents gave me up at 13. My adopted
Wow.
parents, they gave me up, and from 13 on, I stayed homeless for 15 years. And during that time, a lot of people came in and out of my life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and because, in a weird sense, tomorrow's not really promised to those people,
Mm-hmm.
neither is it promised to me. We kind of lived our lives in such a way that allowed us to just have an ebb and flow, but
Mm-hmm.
you start kind of somewhat sensing like you're losing people, or you want to hold some people dear, but then they wind up just moving on, sometimes without a word. And I think that
Yeah.
develops a similar situation within myself too, where it's like separation anxiety that sometimes I feel like I will let a person go quicker than they could possibly let me go.
Yeah. That makes
And
sense.
sometimes that's an issue I face. But yeah, do you think abandonment and separation anxiety play hand in hand with one another?
Absolutely. And for me, what's weird about abandonment is that my father abandoned us like psychologically, but
Mm,
we abandoned him physically. So I was never upset that we left him because I think that was a good move that my mom made. But I think maybe the idea that I would never have a father ever, because my mother never, well, she wasn't even married to my father, but she never got married and we didn't have like male role models really.
mm,
So it was, it was challenging. But um, what I've also, as I've gotten older, that I've learned to understand about myself is that I attract people based on that separation anxiety and abandonment. So I ended
mm,
up with in a 3 year relationship with a man who had a double life, had a whole other girlfriend that he was going to get married to while he's talking to about moving in with me. Like it was pretty, and we lived in the same neighborhood. I'm like, what is this woman like out of town? Like she lives in another state? Nope, she lives in Brooklyn. And I had to really look at myself and be like, why am I attracting this stuff? And so I think whether it's abandonment or you're a total empath, which I am, I think it's just as important to recognize the signs that you have, but also the kind of people you attract because of it. Because, they say you play out your childhood wounds as an adult, right?
Mm.
And actually, one of my favorite quotes is, if you want to find your purpose in life, find your wound. I love that quote. If you want to find
Just
your purpose in life, find your
find
wound.
your wound.
So,
Mm.
yeah, so your wound is something that you're, as a child you've been wounded, but as an adult you're constantly trying to heal that wound, but you're attracting the same abuse or whatever it is because you're constantly trying to heal yourself from it. So you need it in order to heal, but then you're just in this cycle, if you're not conscious of it, that you're just attracting the same kind of personality. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's this is one of the things I love about getting older is that you just know yourself in ways that you may only, you weren't conscious of, or you were figuring it out as you got older. But I know all this stuff so well. I can't change it. It's still deep in me, but I'm more aware of the patterns I have and the things that I need to be hyper conscious of because it's so deeply ingrained. You will miss it if you're not conscious of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Oof. That was very well said.
We're all human.
We are all human. I was about to say what my friend says. He says, throw the visa. He's funny. But, um, when you wrote, so this is a small piece of the book. I actually have a whole section dedicated to it, but I just wanted to highlight this part because it fits in with the flow of the
Yeah.
interview. It's when you wrote about your mother looping the block of sacrifice until her demons caved in. What does that look like? Is this something that can be avoided, a way for both dreams and caretaking to exist together?
Yeah, it's interesting because I really feel like I'm living the life my mother should have had if she
Mm,
had a different support system or different education. She dropped out of school when she was in the 8th grade and became a waitress, was smoking like 2 packs of cigarettes every day. Beautiful enough to be a model. She had modeling shots. She was a great artist, all of that. But I think having me when she was 24 and then my brother when she was 27
mm,
and then being in this really toxic relationship, I think she gave up anything that she really, really wanted to do to focus on taking care of us. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was that she felt bad for bringing us into this environment. She also was a caretaker to my grandmother. So my grandmother, I told you, was sick. So here she was working 2 waitressing jobs, not making a lot of money, but really trying to put us like into things that like piano lessons, gymnastics, like all this stuff. But in
mm,
reality, I think if she didn't have us, maybe she would have been the one traveling to Egypt or this place or that place because she talked about it a lot, but she never was able to do it.
mm,
And the other thing that is interesting about that is that she didn't know enough about what was going on in the world to know that when I was like, yeah, I'm doing a shoot in Liberia, she's like, that's safe, right? And I'm like, yeah. Luckily, she wasn't aware of really what I was, getting into, but I didn't want her to worry because she was also hyper, like, just concerned about this path that I was on. Like, it just seemed a little extreme to her, I think, you know?
mm.
Are you sure you're safe? You're traveling by yourself here, there. Like, yeah, I'm good.
Uh-huh. Man. So, and to revisit one part of the question, do you think it's possible for like mothers that would be hearing this that are in a, maybe a similar situation? Do you think it's possible to balance the two? You know, going after your dreams while being a caregiver?
I do think it's possible to go after your dreams. I think it depends on your dream because I've said this to many of my friends. Like, I don't have kids. And I was like, it's not that I chose not to, it's just that my life didn't work out in a way that I felt would be a good decision. But I will say I could not have my career and be a good mother. And I think I would have probably done what my mother did, which is to give up my dream to focus on being a good mom. I think I would have done that. But I think the world worked out the way it was supposed to for me, because I'm really happy with my freedom, with being able to kind of travel and do what I want. And I would not have that freedom. Even when I had dogs for 12 years, I felt this intense like degree of responsibility to make sure they were good and this and that's not. I could not be a good mom and be the filmmaker that I was. I couldn't leave my kid for 6 weeks to go shoot. Now, if it was possible to be like, let me take this kid with me and I'll go do this and that and travel the world or whatever, you know, maybe to some degree, but I think it would have been very challenging. So I've had friends of mine my age who, I remember this one woman sat across from me and had lunch from me and started crying. And I was like, why are you crying? And she's like, listen to you talk reminds me that I put my dreams aside. And her daughter was sitting right next to her, and I was like, you're a mom, like you're a mom, like you have an important role to play and you're doing exceptional at it. You can always do stuff when you're older, you can always revisit whatever, but I could never do what I do if I was a mom. Never. Not me. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it depends on your dream. Going and working in war zones as a filmmaker and all of that, I just think it's irresponsible if you have a family.
Mm,
If your
that
dream
is a
is
really
to become
good,
a singer and you're in the
answer.
studio a lot, I think maybe that's a different dream. Not better
Mhm.
or worse. It's just
Different.
more, you're able to maybe accommodate being a mom in that environment versus, again, this crazy life that I've developed.
Well,
It is.
hopefully
It's a
one
little
day
nuts.
I could see you in person because I plan on traveling the
Yeah,
world too and bringing
I'm
human to life.
here. Yeah,
Um,
that'd be great.
God, the higher power, may we be blessed. Um,
Mm.
how do, let me just make sure. Okay. So I wanted to also say, I guess between the abuse and instability, how did that impact your ability to connect with your peers at the time? Because you said you were very silent. And so I was wondering, like, how did that look like in terms of having friends, having people to connect with that was around your age at that
Yeah.
time? What did that look like?
No, it's a great question. So my mom worked a lot, so I was on my own quite a bit.
Mhm, mhm,
And luckily, she decided to move us to a safer place. Like I have a cousin who grew up in the projects in LA, was shot,
mhm,
was in gangs, like all that stuff. My mom moved us to a beach town called Ventura, which was much more mild, safer, the whole thing. And I developed good friends in school. So one of my closest friends growing up was named Tina, and her family would go to church and they would, do like the normal stuff. And I think that really put me on the right path, because I say this to a lot of people. If I didn't find art or filmmaking or whatever it was, I could have easily got pulled into another life thing. The fact that I'll even just talk about filmmaking. Filmmaking is such a complicated craft and it's constantly evolving, that my brain that needs to be constantly like learning or stimulated, if I didn't have that, I could have gone down, I think, a bad path. And so my friend, going back to Tina, her family went to church all the time. My family was not really religious, but going to church meant that we went on ski vacations, weekend outings, bowling, whatever it was. So I kind of got activities which fueled my normalcy. If I didn't have that stuff, which is again why also when I think about women who are single moms or in abusive situations, it's like there's so much you can do to ensure your kids don't fall through the cracks or do whatever. And so much of it is, for at least for me, it was stability, was keeping like yourself, like even they say with sports, like sports, arts, that kind of stuff, where your mind is constantly preoccupied, you don't have time to be doing stupid stuff. Yeah, I hope
You do not.
that answers.
So I
Yeah,
also want to highlight a part where I'll just, put a little piece of my story out there.
yeah,
My life could have went different. Around 13 years old, I went to go meet the
heck
mafia
yeah,
and
yeah.
asked them to technically make people disappear in permanent deletion. That's the way I
Wow.
put that.
Right.
And so I decided. Uh, Funny part was I had to meet them in Queens. I had to stand outside of a park. They didn't let anybody in the park that they didn't know.
Mm.
And so when one person went in, I spoke with them, and then he came back out with an answer, and that answer was a no. Um,
Oh,
but my soul,
wow.
though, I don't think was 100% in alignment with that. Though I am dynamic, almost like multidimensional in a way,
Hmm.
my soul doesn't allow for certain things to take place for sure, for sure. Give me 1 second. And so I think that everything happens for a reason, you know? And I'm just grateful
Hmm.
that I was able to get myself, come to my senses and not go down that path because now we're here today, right?
Yeah,
So
and your human world project is beautiful and amazing. And
thank you.
when I saw it and I checked it out, I was like, absolutely, I would love to talk to you. So you're definitely doing something right. So,
Thank
yeah.
you. And just know that, you know, I can't exist without you, right? You meaning
Mhm.
the people that decide to come on and share their stories and be vulnerable. And I always keep that at both the forefront and in the back of my mind while doing certain things regarding human, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but what I will say is the next question I have is how did art become your survival as a kid? Because I read that as well, and I wanted to highlight that question. I thought that was an important part for not only me to hear, but other people who may go be going through similar things.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was because again, so I'm a Gemini
Hmm.
and my brain goes like hyper speed. I can be interested in a million things at once. And I feel like art gave me this sort of focus and um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I wouldn't say it's a work ethic necessarily, but to be a gymnast, like, it was no easy thing. Like, being a
Mm,
gymnast, I will advocate it's great for so many things your center of balance, your commitment, your strength building. Like, I remember we used to have to do these like sit ups on the edge of a step with weights behind our head, like doing all this stuff. It was flipping everywhere, falling off the beam and then having to get back up. Like it was exciting enough for me to keep my busy mind focused.
mm,
And so I feel that if I did not have that, I've worked with young poets in New York City, and some
mhm,
of them have said if I didn't find poetry, like I could end up doing drugs, being on the streets, getting arrested or whatever. And I grew up on the beach, so I don't want to make the same comparison, but I will say I could have ended up with a life that is not what I have now
mm,
if I didn't have arts. And I also think because of the trauma that I was dealing with my father, being able to draw and paint and doing, gymnastics and dance and like playing music, all this stuff. And I was really, really good at all of it, like really good. And so maybe I had ADHD. I don't know. I had a lot of energy and then learning, like I was so good at piano that the piano teacher said, I want to put her into serious training every day, do this, that, whatever. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to do gymnastics. So I quit. I could have done piano
mm.
and been really good at it. So I was just I don't know the word I'm looking for, like curious. Maybe my curiosity was fulfilled with music and dance and drawing and painting and all of it, whereas it could have been fulfilled with something else less healthy.
Mm. Indeed, what we choose to do, choices are important
Mhm.
for both this interview is
Absolutely.
what I'm saying, but also for those who will be listening to after.
Hmm.
Choices are important, man. They could definitely change the trajectory of your life. I've made some
Like easy,
choices
easy. And
easily.
one small choice could lead you completely down a different path.
This is
Completely.
very true. What was the first aspect of art that you fell in love with?
That I fell in love with,
Mm-hmm.
I think drawing. Drawing.
Interesting.
I used to draw with my mom when I was really young, and I remember specifically we were sitting at this one table. We were still with my father, and we were drawing, and she was teaching me some stuff, and she said, you know, despite our circumstances, you can be whatever you want to be, or you can do whatever you want to do. And as I got older, we used to joke that I must have believed her because I literally think I can do anything. I just have to figure it out. So I couldn't afford an editor, a film editor, so I spent 3 years learning how to edit. If I wanted to become a DJ tomorrow, I could figure it out. So it's never that I can't do something, it's that I just need to, like, no
Mm.
is not an answer for
You
me. So
remind me
I
of myself.
feel that, yeah. And then when I remember when I was in school, like when we first moved away from my father, the teacher's like, you know, it's Father's Day. We want everybody to draw a picture of your father, or something like that. And I froze because I didn't want to draw it. I didn't like, you know, kind of brought up bad things. And I remember telling the teacher, you know, I don't want to draw my dad or whatever. And she's like, that's okay. She's like, draw your mom. And I drew my mom. And I think that was an instance where I was healing from my fear of my father.
Mm. Mm. I just wanted to
Yeah,
highlight a part that you just spoke about regarding picking up things and having to do them and learn them on your own. I have a similar experience. Because I have ADHD, I call it hyperintelligence, and I can pick up things
I
very
love it.
fast and apply them
Yeah,
as I'm learning them. That's how I
yeah,
got into creation as a whole. Like the website I created in 24 hours. This is back
I love
then,
it.
and there was
Yeah,
it was I'm learning a lot right now as well. So I'm learning German, Spanish, a new website builder, and I'm learning color grading as well. But I've already
right.
did that before. But it's not
Hmm.
about myself. I just wanted to say that I can definitely relate to you when I hear you talking about that. I'm like, wow, that's like similar to how I am, you know?
Yeah,
I call it
definitely.
the football theory, right? So the football theory goes, the reason why I had to learn a lot of things because I ran a company at one point in Florida. And so
Okay.
I would tell somebody to give them a task. They'd be like, oh, okay, I could take care of it. And so
Mm.
it's either two things happen sometimes. Well, it's three. The third thing is that they actually make the touchdown. But then
Yeah.
the first thing is they're running the ball and they start to lose faith in things. And, for some odd reason,
Hmm.
they're like, I'm actually to stop. And that's about it, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that's one. But the one that's actually more popular is the one where they fumble. So they be running the ball,
Oh.
something comes out of nowhere, an obstacle or maybe a challenge, and it clips them and the ball goes into midair. And, I have to come out of nowhere and scoop that and then run it all
Mm-hmm.
the way to the finish line, and I
Right.
had to do that so much that I've learned so much. It was
Yeah.
pretty intense and crazy.
Yeah. Right.
But I have an intricate question for you.
Okay.
Um, and is
I'm ready.
what is it like to experience art at the intersection of survival and passion?
I love it. To experience art at the intersection of survival and passion. I think when I'll go again back to my childhood, when art becomes a lifeline to feel removed from a daily fear that I wouldn't even say I had nightmares about my father killing me, but I was more afraid of him killing my mom because I saw him push her over the side of the boat. She couldn't swim. Somebody else had to jump in to save her. I saw him beat her. Like I was more concerned about her well-being than my own. At one point, I heard her scream in the bedroom and I went and got a knife. I was 5, right? 5. And I was wise enough to think to put the knife back because if I tried to hurt my father, of course, like that wouldn't have been a good thing. So I think for me, art wasn't just a hobby. Art was the ability to remove myself mentally and physically away from the fear I had of abuse and also of watching my mother struggle.
Mm.
And so for me, I think as a kid, not having the coping mechanisms that I have as an adult, that art was my coping mechanism to deal with that situation. And I would say that's not even my truth. I've met so many people around the world in different situations. I did poetry workshops in areas of conflict where young people who were in southern Lebanon, for example, dealing with bombs from Israel dropping, in southern Lebanon, being stuck in their house in the basement for 60 something days, worried that their family is going to get killed. They wrote poetry to express their stories. And through the writing, we had young people like cry. They were releasing the trauma that they were feeling from a constant, like, internal, never ending fear that you're going to be killed or your family's going to be killed. So I think that art helps you handle that immense emotion in a healthy way.
Mm.
So I don't know if I answered your question, but
You did to the best of your capabilities. I know it's a strong question. I created these questions with
no,
a lot of
they're
a
good.
lot of thought. I
You
really,
should
really,
uh
really.
you should write a book or something of art for healing and include some of these questions because they make you reflect in a way that an interview about my film or winning the Emmy wouldn't. You know what I mean? It's like, how
Indeed.
did you make that film? How did you learn AI filmmaking? All of these things are important, but when you get to the root of why I became a filmmaker or why certain people gravitate towards art, you have to do a lot of soul digging, I think, to
Hmm.
understand. Because most
Indeed.
great artists I know did not have an easy path. Most of my friends who are really, really good at what they do, singers, beatboxers, whatever, did not have an easy life. So
Yeah, that
maybe
passion.
there's, yeah.
That's the
And then healing.
intersection of passion
Yes.
and survival, right? Like, so this
Right.
is my way of kind of expressing that, even though I have other ways of doing that as well.
No,
And like
it's
I
beautiful.
tell people, there is an art to asking the right question. I'll just quickly go over that. Again, I've done this before in other interviews, but not many times. But
Yeah.
basically, the art to asking the right question is asking the question to the person about what is it that you're seeking, not the answer you're looking for, but getting the most information about what is it that you're seeking, right? So you don't want a specific answer. You want them to dig deep and pull out the
Yeah.
answer that they truly feel. And
Yeah.
because I was homeless for 15 years, I have a way of talking to people that they don't fully
Mm-hmm.
sometimes understand what's going on because psychologically I've had to have thousands of conversations for my survival. Thousands. I
Right.
could easily say over 10,000 conversations in my life
Wow.
have taken place just off the basis of survival. Like, no exaggeration. I've lived up to 16 states by myself, and that's across America. So,
So
I've
let me
really
ask
gone
you a
through it that.
question. I'm sorry, because
Mhm.
I'm a filmmaker. I make stories about people.
Indeed.
Do you feel now at this stage of your life that you are in some ways grateful for that difficult journey that you've been on? Did it add to your character or make you a kind of person that maybe you wouldn't have been if your life was a lot easier?
100%. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to necessarily compare myself to other people, but I'll briefly say, or with brevity, say that when I see people who haven't been challenged in life, they tend to oftentimes not get the depths of what life has to necessarily offer. And I think
Yeah.
that you're being robbed of the human experience to a degree because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that also depends on
Mm-hmm.
the way that you want to live your life. But
Right.
this has shaped me into the person I am. I'm very dynamic. I have
Mm-hmm.
a heart and empathy. I'm also an empath as well for other people, and I try my best to understand them in their situation. Because I've even ran into people that they talk to people or they talk about, let's say, homeless people. When they talk about them, it's like, I could tell you haven't had too many struggles or
Zero
even put you
experience.
close to that based upon how you're
Right.
addressing this now, right?
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
and you know what it also gives me the capability of? To do what I'm doing now. What the key
Yep.
about what I'm doing is that a lot of things you've been through, not a lot of them, excuse me, I can't say a lot, but I will say there are certain instances in your life that I can relate to 100% because I've lived through so much. So anybody I bring on, even if
Hmm.
they're from a foreign land, I can relate to them because I've been
Right.
through similar struggles, right? And I've
Right.
lived through a lot of different instances. So that's
Hmm.
what makes me really good at what I do here,
Yep.
is in terms of being able to connect. And then people are like, well, I came on your show, I cried, I was extremely
Hmm.
vulnerable. And I was like, that's because I'm relatable. I'm not like you said, I'm not asking about the Emmy. Well, not
Yeah.
yet, but I'm not, I'm not asking
Mhm.
about certain things as of yet. But this is what interviewing I feel like is supposed to be, you
Yeah.
know, truly
Yeah.
bringing the person's story to life.
Yep.
At the end of the
Yep.
day, one of the deep plans I have for human, and I'll just then we'll come go back to the interview, is that I have a friend. He knows how to build cloud systems. He knows how to import things
Mm.
into a cloud system. That cloud system, I asked him, how do you take what's in the cloud and string it over to an archive? So in the future, what the plan is,
Mm.
to a degree, is all these stories that are being collected, including yours, will go
Hmm.
into a time capsule archive,
Love
so
it.
that way it
Hmm.
can open 100 to 200 years from now. And people could
Love
be
it.
like, wow, that's what it was like to live during that time,
Yep.
So,
Love it. I know. It's just the idea that things are so like technical and AI and all of this stuff. Still in 20 years, people are going to be looking back and being like, yeah, that's old school. It's wild.
yes,
Wild.
they will. But this is the beauty of it, right? Like the watch I wear, right? Like this, all my
Mm.
watches are kinetic. They're powered by movement.
Okay.
The reason
Mm.
why I have it that way is so when I give them to my kids, when I finally do have
Yeah.
kids, they can choose what they want to do. They can use it as a timepiece, a vintage timepiece, or they can sell it years down the line because this will be out of play almost entirely by that time.
Right. Right.
Got a plan for the
Right.
future.
Mm.
Oh, but
Mm.
I want to ask, what was one thing you fell in love with about music, being inspired from music at a young age, right?
That I
I
fell in
believe that,
love with.
yes, indeed. So I heard you say DJing. So I know, that's one aspect that you really, you like. And I see that you have instrumentation behind you. I can't see it exactly right now, but in the previous
Oh,
call. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Um, I love music, and I feel that I could have gone the path of being a musician if I wasn't so self-conscious and shy when I was young. And I think, obviously, I've come out of that, but I feel that what happened with my childhood and my father and being in hiding, I really shrunk. I became very, I wasn't comfortable being out and being whatever. And I think music is just another form of freedom that I can relate to. The reason I got into hip hop when I was in college was because I went to school in Santa Barbara, and it was kind of an extension of where I grew up on the beach. And it was very like there was only one black dude in my high school, my friend Jamal. And it was very well, there's a lot of Mexican kids and stuff like that. But it was, for the most part, going to Santa Barbara was like blonde hair, blue eyed, the kind of typical Southern California, whatever. And I never felt comfortable fully in that space, but I never wanted to own the sort of Chinese American girl with no father, poor. Like I hated everything about that stereotype about me.
mm,
And so once I got to Santa Barbara and I met the dancers in my troupe who were Filipino, Black, Latin, whatever, I think that's when I really started to feel comfortable in my own skin as a young girl that wasn't blonde hair, blue eyes.
mm,
And it was probably, it was the the feeling I got from being in that hip hop troupe is probably why I loved Brooklyn so much. Like it was the same feeling of being around people that had a culture, that were proud, that were, you know, just not the two-parent perfect house, cars, money, all of that I felt so like I when I was younger, I wanted it, but I wasn't close to it. And so I felt like an outsider. I was like self-conscious about it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then I meet all of these people who had lifestyles that were more similar to me. And I feel like hip hop brought me into, and we know, I mean, it's not just hip hop music, it's the culture. Like the culture
Mhm.
is what I think allowed me to grow into my confidence of who I am and what I came about. And I will also say the reason why I asked you if your challenging life, if you look back on it and appreciate it because it made you stronger. I hated being that girl, but as I'm older, I was like, thank God I was poor and had to overcome all these things because I think it made me super creative. Like if I had
Mm.
everything I ever wanted, if I didn't have to put myself through school, if I didn't have to do whatever, I could have been less. I don't know. I learned a lot by having to do, and I'm so grateful now. It's like I'm glad. I feel more comfortable in the struggle than I do in the privilege, and
Mm.
I'm glad for it now.
Mm. That was very well put. Oh, so I wanted to just hone in about like I appreciate the past, but one thing that scarred
Yeah.
me really deep was when my parents gave me up at 13. So I think that's something that I was like, woo, I had to. And then one time, my
Mhm.
aunt abused me on Christmas Eve, like stomped me out and then hit me in my jawline and it swelled up and I had to sing in the choir. So I didn't forgive her until she died. And it took a while for me to forgive her. Like it took me years
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was infuriated. I'll just be
Mhm.
honest. But
Yeah.
now everything is okay. I've learned how to forgive. I've let things go, but Lord knows, yeah. So, are there aspects of that time that did scar me? I don't want to say that I regret. That did scar me deeply,
Yeah.
to a degree, yes. But that also makes us who we are, right? Even as humans, the beautiful aspect and the scars that come behind some of that beauty, you know. So,
Do you know the book Conversations with God?
no. Mm-mm.
So it took me a long time to get into it because the beginning, it was something that I didn't really like. I just wasn't vibing with the beginning, but everybody was talking about this book. So I was like, let me just power through it. And there's something in it that says something like, you are what you are not, something to that effect. And it's sort of like, you have to know what you don't like in order to know what you like, or you have to know what you're not good at in order to know what you are good at. And I think when we have these bad experiences, like maybe you felt abandoned and you had a really traumatic childhood, but maybe that's going to make you a better father because you know what you don't want to be. Does that make sense?
This
It's
is
like I think I'm not quite.
this is very true. Yeah, no,
Read
this is
that
very
book
true.
because I haven't. In fact, I need to reread it because it was very profound. It had
Interesting.
a mark on me. Hmm. You
Well,
are
your
what
book
you
was
are not.
very profound, by the way. So I just wanted to
Thank
give
you.
you credit. Before we start heading into those questions, I'll let you know when we get there for sure.
Okay.
Um, but continuing, I wanted to say, what was it like to be the first person to go to college in your immediate family?
It was not easy. It was not easy. So
Hmm,
I didn't know what I
interesting.
wanted to do, and so I was like, let me be a science major because I was good at math and science. But I had to fill out all the financial aid forms. I had to fill out the applications, and I'm trying to get my mom to help me, and she has no idea. I was like, well, how do I tell them how much a telephone bill is? Or how do I, like, I couldn't figure it all out. And
Mm,
then I got a full ride because I got in and I got a full ride. But what they didn't tell you is that, okay, so you have to move to Santa Barbara in order to get a year lease, but your scholarship only covers 9 months. So those
mm,
three months you have to pay. So I ended up getting a job. And then at the end of the year, they decreased my student aid because I made money. So fast forward, I'm working to pay off what I need to pay off, and then my financial aid is going lower and lower. So by the time I graduated, I was working two jobs full time and going to school.
mm,
So
mm.
if I had somebody to hold my hand a little bit, I think it would have been a little bit. easier. But again, I went to school, I worked, and then I had friends who didn't have to work a day in college. And when they got out, they were starting where I was 4 years before. So it all worked out the way it was supposed to. My strong work ethic has partly to do with the fact that I had to put myself through school, but it was not
Mm.
easy.
I think it's important that we freeze in this section right here and talk about that because that is like, whew, that is something else. I'll tell you that. And so
Mm.
sometimes what I really just want people to know is that they should try. I'm not saying work to death, but try to do what you did and work so that way they're not in debt. I'm in debt. I'm just gonna be honest. And a lady
I don't
warned
have
me.
any
She was like, "Hey,
money.
Troy."
I have nothing. Yeah.
She was, well, see, nowadays they hit you with all types of things with financial aid. And so I fell for that because I wanted to get out of
Yep.
being homelessness. I'll be honest with you. That
Yep.
was my ticket out of
Yeah.
homelessness. It was like, oh,
Right.
I'm just going to school to get the money, do
Yep.
what I need to do. And
That's
it worked. It
smart,
did work.
though.
And I
Yeah.
started a company behind that too. So it did work.
Yeah.
But because I had never had money like that, I kind of mismanaged it. Whatever the case may be, a lady was warning me. She
Yep.
was like, Troy, you should work while you go to school and stop taking out so many loans because it'll put you in debt. And so now I just definitely learned, that
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. No,
Somebody said it took
yes.
to somebody said they had 5 jobs and $40,000 in loans that took them 25 years to pay off. It's almost like a never ending
That's how they
cycle.
get you.
I used to say that as like a catchphrase, like this is how they get you.com, you
It's
know?
true. It's true. This is how they program you to
That's how they get you.
sell your soul and build somebody
Ooh,
else's empire
ooh, I
and
love it.
stay as a worker.
Interesting that you speak of selling thy soul.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, while we on the subject, we might as well take a little side track or side quest into that. Like,
Okay.
because this never came up in the interview before. So part of me doesn't even know how to necessarily like, sorry, my light is doing
Navigate
something
it.
weird right here. But yeah, because I know people are like, well, it's a taboo topic, basically. People don't like really touching on it too much. Um, but what is that? I can't even say what does that look like. Like, look at what we're going through nowadays with so
Mm-hmm.
many people just taking certain routes and shortcuts. And then you have people like myself who are really trying to do it right, or not
Yep.
trying to. I am doing it right. And that frustration that people feel. So I guess while we're in this side quest right now, talking about people selling their soul, like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what advice do you have? What has been your experience of what you've seen people doing that. And then we'll get back to the main interview. But I just really wanted to highlight that while we are on that subject.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it is a system that we are trained into since we're in school to kind
Mm,
of follow this sort of path. You go to school, you go to college, you get married, you have kids, you have a 9 to 5 job, you work how many years till you retire, you buy a house, you buy a car, you're constantly indebted to somebody. And then you have people like us who decided to get off that treadmill, and a lot of artists also get off that treadmill. And what we do is we have exchanged security for freedom
mm,
to pursue what it is that our soul really is striving for. Like
mm,
I had my last job was in 1996, like
mm,
full-time job. It was my first job that I got when I was getting my master's degree. I had a very abusive boss. I had insomnia. I couldn't sleep. I was miserable and fought him because I was like, I felt like I was in a toxic relationship. He would yell and scream at me one day and then bring me like flowers and wine the next day. And I was like, this is just fucking weird. Excuse my language. Sorry.
that's fine.
Anyway, anyway, um, that was the last job I had. When I quit, I was able to sleep well. And I'm a hard worker. I work harder than most people I know with full-time jobs, but I work how I
Mm,
work and when I work. And I have my own, like there's a saying that Questlove mimics all the time with Malcolm Gladwell, that it takes 10,000 hours for you to perfect your craft. And that also rituals. Like Maya Angelou used to have rituals. A lot of these artists would have rituals, and these rituals are something that you do to get your mind or your energy, whatever, in line for you to do the work that you need to do. So for me, it was getting my iced coffee and walking around my neighborhood in Brooklyn every morning before I even got on my computer or did anything. This was my ritual. And I feel
Mm,
that if I literally think if I had gotten married, had a 9 to 5 job, bought a house, bought a car, I would be so miserable. I
mm.
do not think it is my character or my calling. I'm not saying anything is bad with it. Anybody who makes that decision, it's them. But I for, forego security for freedom, and I'd rather have freedom.
Ooh, I just like the way you just really broke that down in terms of like selling that. So for me, I see selling the soul similar, but I see
Yeah,
people taking shortcuts and getting involved in certain things. I'm not going to exactly say too deeply what those things
yeah,
are. Let me just tell you that I've been around for a while and I've seen some
yep,
things. I've seen
right,
people morph
right,
as if, Dracula appears out of nowhere or werewolf or however you want to
yep,
say that. Not saying that those are real characters in that moment, but just to see the transformation of people in a certain way.
mm,
Uh, and then I've seen evil. Like when I was in California, I saw I saw some evil. I'm just gonna be honest. And I saw power and control at the maximum. That means San Francisco was like a grid, and everybody knew what was going on, or certain puppet masters knew what was going on. And then I also
yep,
was approached as well during that
mm,
time with an offer that was quite luxurious, and I turned it down. Now, though, fast forward to where I'm at right now. So I work for IKEA, but I'm really trying to leave. I'm tired of working 9 to 5 structures because
yeah,
what's going on in America is getting worse. It has always been here, but now it's almost at a maximum, and that's people putting money over people and
yep,
then disregarding the people that are in turn making their money.
yep.
And so
You're
I just
100%
am,
right.
thank you very much. I had to study this day and night. But I am,
And they're
I am,
making it, I mean, what's crazy too is that they're even making it so hard for people who want to have full-time jobs to then be able to afford rent and food and everything. So it's almost
watch
like you
this.
have to double up. You know what
You ready for this?
I mean? Yeah.
I have an equation, and I'm going to say it pretty quickly. So,
Okay.
what I did was I studied people. I went around without them knowing, and I asked them questions like I'm doing here. And what I asked them was, "Hey, how many jobs you got?" They were like, "Hey, I got 2 jobs." I'm like, "Well, how do you
Mm,
define living?" And people had all these different types of answers. There wasn't one that was repeated, because living means something else to everybody, right?
mhm,
Though there's a societal definition of living. Regardless of that,
mm.
one day I was talking to somebody and I was like, well, let me ask you a question. I'm like, if you're a human being and you are working 2 jobs and living means that you get time to enjoy yourself, let me ask you, are you a human? Are you a human being? Or are you just a being trying to be human? How does this work?
Yeah.
Because in my
But I think
opinion, you're not being
maybe
human if
that's,
you're working all the time. That's not, unless
yeah,
you enjoy doing that. But I think part of life is taking a step back, enjoying other people's company, things of that nature. And it's sad because retirement is at risk of being pulled away permanently. And
absolutely.
if that should happen, then you are working to your
For what?
death,
Yeah,
literally. And the
yeah,
retirement
yeah.
money, my mom and pops are retired. They even told me recently, like, hey, you know, the retirement money, it's good to a degree, but it's like it's barely cutting it now. So I feel sorry for them because it's like, well, what did you work for? What did you work so hard to obtain to then see that thing that you've obtained being tackled by uncapped inflation
Yep,
insanely? So
yep,
that's
yep.
what I want to say to
Hmm.
that.
No, it's valid.
Thank you.
But
I
think
yeah.
I also, sorry, let me just
Hmm.
rant on one thought. I also think it's intentional, it's by design. The more you keep the population busy,
Hmm.
the more they have less time to think critically about what's happening in the world.
So there's a cheat code to that, but people frown upon
Mm,
it. I know this is going to sound crazy because I lived it. I
okay.
lived it for 15 years.
Mm,
I had nothing but time when I was homeless. And you know how
mm,
much stuff I figured out?
yep.
Figured out a lot of stuff. I'm not at liberty to, like I said again,
Right.
this is not, it's not my interview, you know, but when the time comes, I'll be more than glad to speak about it in a very intricate way, you know, letting
Right.
people know what's going on.
Or
But
maybe
regardless
I
of
can
that, I
interview
had
you.
years. Indeed, if this is what you would like to do, that would be great. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has interviewed, excuse me, let me not say that. That's wrong. Nobody has interviewed me the way that I've interviewed. I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect
Fair.
people to take my style and be and do exactly what I do, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about just like a life story, like interview, like
Yeah.
because my life story is extremely complex and very
Right.
intense, and it's not
Right.
necessarily negative, but I've been through, you know how you tell people
Yeah.
you've been through a lot, and then people think they get an idea of what you've been through. I'm gonna be
You're
honest
like,
with you,
yeah.
it's not even
No
worth
idea.
people. Yeah, it's not even worth people trying to fathom because
Right.
that's how much I've been through, like for real.
Wow.
But I'm just grateful to be
Yeah.
here, and it's not like a
Exactly.
I. I don't like that we get into pissing matches about struggles. Like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
had more struggle. I had more struggle. Like, it's not about that. I'm just telling you that
No,
I've been through a good
no,
amount.
I think it's camaraderie sometimes. Like it's like I see you,
Indeed.
you know?
Indeed. But I can tell when people are trying to do, the other thing,
Yeah.
when they're
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to be like, oh no, I gotta one up
One
you
up.
in terms of
Yeah.
struggle or either
Mm-hmm.
trauma bonding. There we go. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, question though, were you introduced to global development in college?
No.
Interesting.
No. Um, I was a science major. I wanted to be a doctor, an ER doctor specifically. So I joke that I was drawn to like trauma,
Mm,
ER, war zone. There's something in me that wanted to be around that, like on the front lines of humanity or whatever you want to call it. But I really think, again, I was trying to figure out, am I going to be a medical illustrator? Because I was good at drawing. Am I going to be, what was I, a business person? Am I going to be a dance therapist? I was all over the place. I couldn't figure it out.
mm,
And I think that one, at one point, I just said, let me get rid of all the noise. And I want to boil it down to like, what are the three things that really made me happy? One was traveling, one was being creative, and one was helping people. And at the time, there was no way I could figure out like what does that job look like? That I can travel, I can help people, and I can be creative. Didn't exist in my mind.
mm,
So I moved to Boston after Santa Barbara, and I got introduced to somebody who's in my book named Jonathan Mann. And he started talking about health and medicine from like social determinants like gender, ethnicity, poverty, like all this stuff. And I was like, yes, 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 yes. But he was talking about like refugees, he was talking about sex workers, he was talking about like the people in society that he was an HIV/AIDS instructor pioneer. And so talking about people that were more at risk for HIV. And then I started looking at my own life. I was like, I was not attracted to medicine because of laboratory work or science necessarily, but the people that were in it. So I used
mm,
to run a girls group home for 2 years. So I was working with girls that were wards and dependents of the courts. I've had so many crazy stories about that.
mm,
I did CPR classes and HIV/AIDS prevention classes in homeless shelters. I was gravitating towards the people that I don't want to say they didn't have a voice. They did have a voice. They didn't have a platform to speak what they were concerned about.
mm,
But I think that I started to feel more comfortable in spaces again of struggle than of privilege. And so I felt that was more of my calling. So when I saw this professor, he spoke about AIDS in a way that made me want to learn from him. And I went to Harvard where he taught. I had the door shut in my face, couldn't learn from him. He called me and
mm.
he's basically like, if you want to learn, you're welcome to come to my class. And that's when global development kind of
Came into play.
presented itself. Yeah.
what is global development? It sounds like something that's pretty dynamic, to be honest with you, especially because it's world, right? You're dealing with the world, not just one specific place.
Yeah.
So yes, please give us insight to that.
So there's different, I'll back up and say, so I do a lot of work at the United Nations, and the United Nations focuses on like three different things: human rights, sustainable development, and peace and security.
Mm,
There's development is really more of like long-term economic, social development, and relief work or humanitarian work is like working in war zones, things that are emergencies. And
mm,
I started off my career working in war zones. So this was crossing over to Kosovo. There were landmines. There was like tanks. Like I've flown in NATO helicopters. Like it was all that. Like I feel like it's kind of like a movie. But I realized when I was working there that that wasn't the life I wanted long term,
mm, mhm,
because it was a bunch of people that were alcoholics that were just jumping from war zone to war zone to war zone, no home, no stability. And I was like, I came from that. I don't want to go back to that.
mm,
So
mm,
development was something that I could see me doing more long term. And then I got introduced to these women who started talking about journalists and how they didn't like stories that were written about them as victims of war. And it really resonated with me. And then I wanted to be a filmmaker. So I kind of pivoted. So it's a bunch of individuals and then experiences that kind of set me on a different trajectory that I didn't know where it was going to lead, but where, like I said, ultimately it all makes sense now.
mm,
So yeah,
mm.
so I don't know. I don't want to get into the like public health or global health and development definition, but really it's development in the sense of economic development, social development, et cetera, over time. It's not the let's fix things, in a crisis.
Mm. When I
So
hear the
looking at health,
phrase,
looking at education, looking at clean water, looking at, clean food, looking at, I mean, there's so much, but yeah.
mm, yeah, when I hear the phrase global development, I hear it more as like a, hey, we're trying to fix the world the best way that we know how, without minimal
Mhm.
excuses or politics, kind of. Even though politics is
It's,
everywhere, you kind of turn.
but yeah, politics is
Yeah,
in development for sure. For
for
sure.
sure. Which, yeah, actually, side quest. I just wanted to say that I was kind of wondering politics. Like, how do you feel about that? This wasn't an original question that I had written down, but I was like, while we're skimming over it, uh, I might as well just ask you, how do you feel about that? If you're allowed to, how does that in a way play in with the UN? Because I know, like I said again, it's everywhere. I've seen you on the panel. I didn't
Mhm.
necessarily hear what you were saying. I had to breeze over it, but yeah, that
Mhm.
experience in itself, politics, the UN, and how you feel about
That's a that's a good question. It's a little complicated.
it.
So
Okay.
let me back up by saying I fight for artist representation at the UN. I truly believe artists should have a presence in these policymaking spaces.
Indeed.
Policymakers and the UN are worried about artists not respecting global diplomacy. So, for example, they're worried if they give a microphone to a poet, a hip hop artist, whatever, they're going to get on it and be like, F Trump, or like say something that they are not supposed to be saying. And then all of a sudden, it's so delicate that you're causing chaos in the UN, right? And I
Mm,
constantly have to remind them we know how to behave. Like people who work as professionals, even though they might be activists on the outside, know how to work and be professional when they need to be.
mhm,
People know I speak up against systems change. I was involved, a lot in like racial justice movements. And when I
mm,
started my career at the UN, it almost felt like they were separate. Like, here's my UN life and my UN hat and my UN work. And then here's my Brooklyn life with my, racial justice, hip hop, whatever.
mm,
And they never fully intersected. When I tried to bring a hip hop artist to the UN, a high level UN person laughed in his face. And I was like, you do not know that this guy is considered like the Michael Jackson of Sierra Leone. And you just laughed in his face. And you're responsible for the livelihoods of millions of young people. So I was like, you don't understand hip hop. So
Wow.
I always kind of kept them a little bit separate. But over time, they started growing closer to closer because I started bringing poets, and poets started,
Mm,
removing the audiences. And then I brought in a beatboxer, and then I brought in a dancer, and I brought in all this stuff. So now the culture is a little bit more open to it, but they will still say, yes, speak truth to power, or we like artivist or whatever, except when people start challenging
yeah.
their privilege, their power, and the systems that they reinforce, then I'm a troublemaker. But in
Mm,
the halls of the UN, I don't wear a suit. I'm not that much of a like, chameleon or shapeshifter, but I still go in as me, but I know how to respect global diplomacy.
mm,
And so I'm very political, very, but you wouldn't know it necessarily if you saw me at the UN.
interesting.
It's like tackling it from the inside. And actually, let me add there's a quote by Pablo Picasso who says, "Learn the rules like a pro, so you can break them like an artist." I would say that's how I approach my work in the UN space. I speak their language.
Interesting.
I know their systems. I know their cultures. I don't agree with it all the time. So I do what I can to learn it and then shift it.
Mm. I'll be honest with you. I've heard that I would make a good, not politician necessarily,
Ambassador?
but just, yeah, something of that nature. And I was like, okay, like, that's cool. I don't, it's not that I lack patience, but at times, I'm not going to curse, but people, when they start doing certain things that are like little and tedious, and you're like, okay, like this doesn't make sense here. Let's get straight to the point. I also don't like the way that people kind of work around the bush instead of dealing with the problems that are in the bush. I just
Yeah.
don't like that one neither, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of that going on from what I've
Mm.
observed. But I will say, what impact does institutional narratives have on society based upon what you experienced? I thought this was the perfect time to ask that question.
Yeah, that's a good one. Institutional narratives have on society. Well, I feel that institution narratives are driven by systems,
Mm,
and systems are oftentimes developed from patriarchy, colonialism,
mm,
capitalism that are actually harmful to society. So I'm at a point where I think, so at one point, let me just back up. I got asked to curate youth artist for an event on trusted institutions. This was right when George Floyd was going on. And I was like, you've
mm,
got to be kidding me. You want me to work with young poets of color to do a performance on trusted institutions while we're watching the protests for George Floyd. I thought that was like, I don't even think they got it. They didn't understand the craziness of what they were actually asking me. But we managed to get musicians from Indonesia, from LA, from New York. Where was the other place? Um, Tanzania, to do a song, a music video during COVID. And we did that. But I think that I'm less convinced our society should be so institutional heavy
mm,
because they are so big and so strong. And again, so many of them perpetuate harmful systems that
mm.
to dismantle them or to reform them requires so much work that I'm starting to believe that our society would be better if we didn't have such a strong institutional culture. And even for me as a curator and a filmmaker, I decided to create what's called Create 2030 because I knew institutions prefer to talk to other institutions versus talking to an individual. And
Interesting.
I don't I don't like that because I think I do the same work. It's just like a title, right? And that I don't get taken as seriously when I'm not an institution. Like everybody at the UN has always been like, you should create a nonprofit, create a nonprofit. I'm like, I don't want to be a nonprofit. I don't want to be an administrator. I want to make films and I want to curate artists. That's like what I want to do and I'm good at it. So why are you forcing me into being something that I'm not, just so I fit into your kind of process, right? And even this one high level UN guy said, but we don't give UN passes to individuals. I'm like, but you will let me curate at the highest levels of the UN, artists, youth artists. You'll give me that responsibility, but you don't trust me with a pass? He had nothing to say. You know, it's like you've
That's a very good
given
question.
me the responsibility to do, and I'm talking about high level UN events where I brought in 6 poets, 7 poets. I worked with them. We did the poetry. There's musicians, did the whole thing. And I was like, you trust me to do that, but you don't trust me to have an ID.
I
So
would love to
these,
speak with you about that, but go ahead.
yeah,
Continue.
no, and I am breaking the system, whether they like it or not. Like, I know they're mad at me, many of them, because I speak out so much, but I think I'm going in the right direction. I think that we need to reform the systems that will allow, whether they're artists or whomever, have, to be heard, to be heard. Because we represent the people. Like if you talk about filmmakers, like I'm not just making films and then going to festivals and being in a theater. Like I really I jumped on a tour bus, was at Mama, went around the country for 3.5 weeks, showing my films to the people. I know what the people are responding to. So in some ways, I feel like you should trust the artist more than you do the people sitting in offices, because we're with the people. We are with the people. You know what I'm saying? And I've even said, let artists sit with policymakers because we can help each other. Let the politicians support the artist, and the artist can report back what the people actually think about what you are proposing or doing. Because artists are with the people. Like I said, we're with the people. We're out. Musicians are in venues, whatever. And I screen my films in many places. I'm not just, well, I've never been to Sundance, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not in that elitist film
Sir,
world.
I
Yeah.
wanted to say something that's like heavy on my chest when you talked about you have to become like an institution for you to be seen. So it plays in a lot what I'm about to say about human, but just a little different,
Mm,
right? So I
okay.
was interviewing and I used to do it on the college radio station. And I was like, yeah, the website wasn't to where it was at now. It was just like a store. There was not, there was a lot of moving pieces and I didn't know exactly how to string them together at that time.
Yeah.
And then now, like everybody that comes to the platform, they really respect it. It's like almost the work really speaks for itself. I don't really have to do so
Absolutely.
much talking,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, wow, wow, wow. But I'm still one man powering a whole platform, right? Which is
Yeah.
exhausting sometimes, I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah. But it looks great.
Thank you very much. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm gearing myself up to not necessarily go to war, but to step into the arena with
Mm-hmm.
BBC News, NPR,
Yeah.
these different institutions. That's what we're gearing up for.
That's great.
And one reason why I find it important is because one young
Mm-hmm.
lady was talking to me. It's the first time I had heard the word epitome. She's like,
Okay.
"You are the epitome of Black journalism," and I was like, "What is
Ah,
epitome?" Threw me
yes.
off, and
Right. Right.
so then she broke it down to me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I got it. I got it. I got exactly what you're saying."
Mm.
And so when I hear you talk about having to become an institution to then have to be heard, I also see that, what I'm creating here can catapult me into rooms that you're in and other places, right?
Yeah.
For me to speak about certain things that are important. Like what we're going to talk about in a later section is AI, humanism, transhumanism, how that all plays together. I do have an
Yeah.
understanding of that. Uh, but without further ado, let us jump back into the interview. And the next question I have is, what is maternal health and why is it important? Because I was like, at first I thought it was mental health, and then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, nah, it says maternal. Got it. So yes.
So this is what I started my film career with, focusing on different maternal health situations, because it was shocking to me that so many women were dying in childbirth or experiencing these disabilities because of childbirth, and nobody was really talking about it. So we hear a lot more now about, especially like Black women dying in childbirth, because they're not, the care is not tailored to what they need, and they are not being prioritized in certain spaces where they should be. So we have a large number of women in America who die from childbirth. Now, the thing I focused on was this disorder called obstetric fistula, and it happens when a woman is experiencing obstructed labor. So maybe she's in labor, but she can't push the baby out. And this will go on for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And it's common in places like Africa and certain developing countries because there's a lot of malnourishment. And so women's bodies are too small to actually accommodate the birth of a full-grown baby, because the baby is going to be the size it's going to be regardless of how big the woman is. And so really what she needs appropriate obstetric care, and she can't get it. So this was unbelievable to me that so many women were dying from situations that are preventable and also where they didn't need to die. And I filmed women who died in hospitals in Ethiopia, for example. So that became really eye-opening to me. And not only that, but maternal health isn't only about lack of doctors, it's just lack of prioritizing women's, lives, lack of prioritizing safe births, safe in some spaces. I did a film about unsafe abortions, which it was one of the hardest films I've ever made. And so you have all these women and young girls, many of them young girls, dying unnecessarily. And it was a really difficult topic to cover. So, yeah.
Yes, I gotta ask a question that rocks my curiosity is how do you do it? How do you go into places and see what you see and then try your best to live with that? I mean, I've seen things, but nothing compared to what you've seen, to be quite honest, based
Yeah,
upon what I'm learning.
I've seen a lot. Well, this is I wrote a poem about it in my book. But a lot of times people will ask me that, and I feel that I have to say it is difficult to witness and to see it, because you can't unsee it and it lives in you. But
Mm,
it's not my life. I'm allowed to leave. I have the passport that will take me out of this situation. And because of that, I feel like I can't make it about how it impacts me personally,
mm,
because I feel like it's not my story. The one thing I will say, and that this is what I came out with the kind of work I do, is that I would go to these places, I would make these really difficult films, but I would come back mad. I was angry, and it would take me a while to readjust. It was harder for me to come back to America than it would be for me to go to some of these places and see these things, because it's like the priorities in our world. It's like, why are women dying in childbirth? And then I come back to America and people are fighting over tennis shoes. Like, it's just your perspective shifts. So I feel that, and that way, that's why I do get political. That's why I see the world through politics, because this is a line in one of my poems. I can film a baby taking a gasp of air and know that it will win me an award before it will change a policy.
mm.
Like, the ethical struggles I had in the kind of work that I do were very serious, and I almost quit many times because I couldn't figure out how to do what I wanted to do, what I'm passionate about doing, what I was good at, and feel like I'm not exploiting a situation, that I'm, the right person to be doing what I'm doing. Like, ethically, I struggled for many years, but then I figured it out. So, yeah.
This is going going to be curiosity. For
Hmm.
sure. Because I know people are actually thinking this, or they're definitely going to wonder, like, so how did you figure it out? Like, people are going to
Exactly.
ask that. So
Right. I'm
that is
happy
the
to
next
talk
question.
about it, or we can bring it. Yeah, we can bring. You want me to answer it now?
Please.
So what I come to realize is, again, so much of where I grew as a filmmaker is understanding power and privilege, and that so many of the bad things that happen on our planet have to do with this power dynamic. And so I'm very conscious of rooms that I walk in where I have no power, like being a
Mm,
filmmaker at the UN, a female filmmaker, and then teaching a workshop in Kenya where I have a lot of power. I'm a Western educated American.
mm,
And I feel that everybody has a role to play in telling a story about Africa, for example, but you don't need to tell Africa's story. You need to tell the story about the systems from America and the impact that it has on the health and well-being of people in Africa. So my
mm,
focus is no longer on like individuals and problems with culture and that whole thing. It's looking at the systems that are perpetuating poverty. So colonization, in Africa is one of the reasons why there was so much poverty that I documented. So why am I telling stories about poor people in Africa when really I should be telling stories about the privilege and the systems of oppression that resulted from colonization? That's the colonization is the story about poverty in Africa, not the people in Africa. Does that make sense?
mm, mm. I would
It's
like for
so
you to dive in just a little bit deeper, if you don't
sure.
mind, so that way you could clarify it.
So
Yeah.
so I feel that the pendulum has swung where it's like Africa needs to tell their own stories. And this is absolutely 100% true. When I started my filmmaking career, the cameras were not available, the expertise was not here. That's why so many people were coming in with cameras and whatever to do journalism, to do filmmaking or whatever. I always told the UN, I don't feel comfortable doing this. So when I go, I want to teach a workshop or I want to leave a camera or I want to do something that is elevating the expertise of the young people, especially I work with.
Hmm.
But over time, it's like, okay, so let's say Africa tells their own stories, America tells their own stories, Canada tells their own stories, and we're all just siloed and repurposing the narratives that we already are familiar with. But if I work for the UN and I'm doing films about poverty or ill health or war, I need to be looking at how my country perpetuates those problems. So if
Mm,
my country is killing people like Gaddafi,
mm.
then the story about Africa is also a story about America.
I actually get that because you're actually leading it back to the source of where
Mhm.
these instances are coming from, these struggles are coming from, these problems are actually coming from. And oftentimes it's not just the place that people look at and be like, oh, this place is doing bad. Well, why is this place doing bad? Just like I heard recently that Europe didn't want to pay reparations.
Yeah,
Or Belgium, or one of these places, I think it was Belgium, didn't want to pay reparations to Africa because they were like, hey, if we paid out reparations and took it very serious, we'll go broke.
yeah,
But you in turn made yourself rich off of people, off the back of people. I'm not going to act like everybody don't have their own problems internally. But one thing, and that's always brought to my attention, I look inward before I try to point the finger outward, but I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
also at the same time ignore the level of how things are executed on a racial scale, right? And how this
Yes.
is in turn impacts us, right?
Hmm.
I tell people even it's a battle sometimes. Even with human, it's sometimes a battle, I'll be honest, because I went through a lot, man. I've been in what's called racial outbreaks, where I
Right,
could have lost
right.
my life for being the only black person in the vicinity.
Yeah, that's
Luckily, I've
facts.
learned to live with these things and still push forward
Hmm.
with the mantra of everybody's human and trying my best to unite people. But the complexity of things is really interesting because like you said, start looking at the problem instead of looking at the source. And then when you
Yep.
try to address the source of the problem, oftentimes you're met with deflection, instead of like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, at least, be like, hey, we did mess up. This is our fault. Now, I will say on the flip side of that, which is a
Mm.
little bit of a complex situation. Sometimes my own people don't like that I do this, but I'm gonna be honest. We've
Yeah.
also done things to each other that wasn't good, that
Yep.
almost gave people the impression that they can come and do what they did, right? To a degree, right?
Yep.
So there's
Yep.
a multifaceted side that needs to be investigated, to be honest with you, on both sides of the coin, you know.
I agree.
Um,
I
and there's
agree. There's
one
also
last
a
thing.
saying.
Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry. Let me say this one thing because I'm
Hmm.
going to forget it. There's also, a saying that when you're in a room where you don't have power, you speak up to get power. You challenge the people in power. And when you're in rooms where you do have the power, then you fight for the people who don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because power and privilege is a moving target. You're never the most privileged, likely, and you're never the most powerless. It moves depending on what space you occupy. And so to be conscious of, okay, I'm a white woman in an all black room, I have more power. So what is my responsibility in this space? Or I'm a woman in a room full of white, powerful men. I don't have power. How do I then fight for my power? So it's like,
Mm.
understanding those dynamics and then adjust accordingly.
In a perfect world, the power dynamics are crazy. In a perfect world, it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be so intense or it wouldn't exist at all, right? And
Right.
sometimes that's tough, you know.
Very.
The way I see power is very weird. I felt that I've seen it before, but it just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
register sometimes in my brain because on a spiritual level, I know how powerful I am, and that exudes
Mm-hmm.
itself on the outer level. I've even spoken
Right.
to people and had to verbally break them down and let them know where I stood, and they stood back and was
Right.
like, "Oh, you're not a joke."
Yeah.
Verbally, you're like, you
Right.
really have it, you know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
sometimes power, it bewilders me, if I can use that
Yeah.
word, because people love
Well, on my work,
the
it's like I walk in
yeah.
the halls of the most powerful people in the world.
Mm,
And then I'm also in refugee camps where I'm with some of the most powerless people in the world. And I wish everybody could have that experience because you do see the world differently.
mm, mm.
You know, I've been around
Understand.
kings and queens, presidents, UN folks, and then I'm with like people in refugee camps or, begging for like small amounts of food. Like it's really jarring sometimes.
It's like going through two different worlds. I used to be homeless, and then I'll go hang
Mm-hmm.
out with a millionaire, and then when time is up,
Exactly.
go back to being homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
all the little dynamics and things of that nature that play out in what's in between, and then the ultimate, ends of both points, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I get it. Oh, I also wanted to say that my heart goes out to those who were impacted by genocide, but what was it like interviewing slash speaking with genocide survivors? Like, I was like, whoa, you know, I know this is going to be a deep question, but I really wanted
Yeah.
to touch on
Yeah.
that.
I mean, so I'm not a journalist. I like to say that to folks because there's a difference in looking for sound bites and quick comments or whatever. Like I've sat under trees and literally spoke with child soldiers for 4.5 hours
Wow.
to really respect and understand their stories. And again, like what is amazing is the resilience of the people that I've been able to interview. Now, I have seen, like soldiers and people who fight and all of that stuff, and there's a certain level of, I don't want to say, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, like evil.
Mm,
I've seen in people. I've seen it. And then you interview a young man who is kidnapped forced to work as a child soldier, got his finger blown off, and that was the reason why he was able to escape his captors. And then having to reintegrate into a society where he's been fighting, he's been high, he's been like, holding guns, he's been doing whatever, and then trying to come back into society is a real journey. You can't just help somebody that was a child soldier, get them back, get them to safety, and then be like, okay, here's your family, go back to your family. It's like you gotta unmilitarize or unsoldierize, whatever you
Unprogram.
want to call it. Yeah. And then, this one young man, I just remember, like, I literally sat under a tree for 4.5 hours, and I was just like, wow, his story was wild. And then I was in Colombia interviewing a young woman, and her uncle lost his wife to the cartel, and he was crying and crying. And I don't speak Spanish fluently, I know some, but he's grieving and grieving and grieving and grieving. And like 5 members of their family were massacred. And you're sitting there with a camera, like feeling so partly awkward and also just so like it's an honor to sit and spend time with these people, but it's also like a heavy responsibility to be like, well, what do I do with this? And that's why, yeah, I feel like you can't just be a filmmaker and drop into these things and come out and take a soundbite and put a news thing together and then go to the next place. Like, I could never do that. I could never, like, part of my soul is in this story, and I got to take care with it, and I've got to put it together in a way that respects the people whose livelihoods I'm capturing. So I talk about the responsibility of storytelling and the power of storytelling, and I mean that like, there's research that shows how powerful storytelling is. Like, people's brain waves line up with other people who are telling the story.
Mm.
So you literally could be a cult leader, or you can be
I've
like
ran into
a
a couple of
powerful
those.
speaker. Yeah, you could be a powerful speaker, orator, whatever, or you could be a cult leader with the
Mm.
power of storytelling.
Mm. In what way do you think film can change a person's life?
You're laughing.
Sorry. Yeah,
As
no, the cult leader thing was
making the
crazy.
film or watching the film? Making the film or watching the film?
Well, no, and what? Oh, that's actually good. Both.
Okay, both. Um, Watching a film, they say art not only helps you understand the world, it also helps you unlearn the biases that you've born into. So when we get exposed to art, whether it's music or poetry or filmmaking or illustrations, the thing that it does to our brains is makes us see things in a way that we haven't necessarily seen it before. And so that can undo biases. So people who expose themselves more to art can become less judgmental, less likely to characterize people. Their minds are open. And we've all experienced this.
Hmm.
Making a film is not easy. It's not easy. You maybe interview somebody for 4.5 hours, and then you've got to make a film that encapsulates this person's story respectfully, accurately, with dignity, and it is your bias that chooses where to make the cut. So I oftentimes say, when people are like, oh, if you're a documentary filmmaker, you have to be unbiased. That's impossible. The second you make an edit, you are choosing how to start telling the story. Your biases go into making that film. And so I oftentimes tell young people who want to become filmmakers, it's not enough to learn how to shoot a camera or edit. You've got to do the internal work, because whatever you think in your psyche about African refugees, women, and child, whatever, is going to come through in how you make this film.
Mm.
And that film has the ability to influence the way people think about certain things. So especially if you're working like in the UN, where you're going into cultures that are not your own, and you choose to do this work, you have to do the internal work as well. Otherwise, you are completely irresponsible as a storyteller,
Mm.
I think.
Mm. Yo, that I'm not gonna lie, that was such a that was so nice. No, for real, that was really, really good. I'm going to rewind that part just for myself, to be
Okay.
honest, and then I'll take the clip and put it out there for other people. But that was profound, just
I've
like
had a lot of time to
the
think about it.
complexities of, and experience as well, but the complexities of like what you're choosing to portray and the biases that are included in that. To be honest with you, we're even going to get into that with AI and the coding of AI and how that can be
Hmm.
a problem.
Yeah.
Right? But what I wanted
Hmm.
to ask first was, what was the experience like being featured in film festivals? I almost had an opportunity to do so, based on a commercial that I had put together years ago, and I did special effects, color graded, and everything. It came out really, really well. But
Nice.
yeah, it just didn't go the way that I wanted to in terms of
Right.
getting in. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I mean,
what's your
I
experience like?
there's two parts of my work, the really serious, soul searching kind of whatever. And then film festivals and arts festivals and music festivals are fun. Like you start meeting people that share your passion. You start talking about like nerdy stuff like cameras or what editing platform you use or have you seen this? And, it's part of like your industry and it happens in every industry. I geek out when I'm at the UN. I geek out when I'm at festivals. Like I like the social thing of being around people who share the same passions
Mm,
you do. But it is so different than when I'm actually in the field making the film. It's heavy. It's sometimes really heavy. And also, I'm now a much more established and like I know what I'm doing as a filmmaker a lot more, and I can make films the way I want to, and I know my style, but
mhm.
also ensuring that you have a balance because I never want to make a film that is like, oh, these poor people in Sierra Leone, oh, the poor people, the poor people. Like, I don't want to show that. And so now I know how to make a film where I don't focus on that, but I focus on universal experiences or feelings so that even though a woman may not be able to relate to a baby falling in a pot of hot water and the trauma that results from that, she can experience it because she's a mother or she's a parent. And so I bring these like universal themes into my films instead of being like focusing on the like sensationalizing a,
Mm,
an incident that may not be common in America, but I'm filming it and then wanting you to relate to something you would never see or experience here.
mm, mm,
So yeah, I mean, I love festivals. I made a decision also that I wasn't going to spend all my money trying to get into festivals, but that I would
mm.
go to universities instead because they paid me and paid my travel to go speak to students I knew wanted to hear about my films. So I never really pursued the big, which is so funny because then I won an Emmy. And I literally was at the table being like, there's no way I'm going to win an Emmy. There is no way I'm going to win an
So,
Emmy. But
well, how
I
did it
think it's
feel?
because I was not focused. It's because my attention, that was not my motivation. And because of that, I created from my soul, my heart, whatever you want to say. And that was more authentic. And that won me the award. So that's the other lesson
Mm,
I tell people. Don't make films for awards, make films on what you're passionate about. And, then hopefully the awards come for you. But if you try too hard, you won't win them, I don't think.
yeah, be authentic with your creativity, right? I think being
Hmm.
authentic is paramount because I believe that so many people nowadays do things for like likes, looks, and how everything
Exactly.
looks like. Like
Yeah,
instead of staying true to themselves and moving forward with their purpose
exactly.
and then letting their purpose shine through so that way other
Hmm.
people can see it and be like, hey, you know what? This person deserves an award, you know? You never know what may happen,
Hmm.
right? Maybe human one day we get an award. What I don't know. What's that
Yeah,
award? Not the Pulitzer Prize. What
yeah,
is it? Some life-changing
yes,
thing. I don't
yeah.
know. But we'll see what happens. That's not what I'm doing this for real, for real. I'm literally doing this
No, but
so I
it's
can
nice to
change
win.
the world.
It's nice to
Huh?
be acknowledged. It's nice to be acknowledged for your hard work.
It
I'll
is.
say that.
I'll be honest. What I wanted to say was, I noticed was this question I feel like is a little later than what I wanted it to
Okay.
be, but I found it to still be important. What does it feel like to be successful by social standards and repeatedly experience erasure, appropriation, and being overlooked? What, because I remember you talked about in the UN, but I just wanted to kind of really kind of dive back into that a little bit and to hear your personal testimony behind it.
So I've been in this game for a long time. And right now, a lot of people are not happy with me because I'm speaking out against what I feel is a really harmful way of engaging artists. There's a lot of people who have no experience, who now all of a sudden think arts and culture is super fun and let me curate artists and let me bring in artists. They don't know what they're doing. And I feel like they are diluting really what is possible with arts and culture. Now, I come from it. When I curate, I'm not just throwing artists on stage. I'm a filmmaker. I know how to put together a journey, a narrative arc, the whole thing. There's a craft to working with artists that many of these 9 to 5 communications experts don't know. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. There's one person I'm pointing a finger at because she used to come to all my events. She never helped me in any way. And then now she's trying to be me. It's just weird. But anyway, there is a system where now everybody wants to be a curator. Everybody wants to do whatever. And the real artists are not getting to do what we're good at. So I'm speaking up about it and people are not happy with me. Now, some people have even went so far. 2 days ago, I got a really nasty message in my inbox like, I don't like your leadership style. I don't like what you're fighting for. I don't da 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 da. I don't know, what are you doing with your AI? And are you paying these volunteer artists? Like, I wrote her back. I was like, I don't even know what you're mad. What are you mad at? You mad at that I do AI? Are you mad that I work in Africa? Are you mad that I criticize the, like, what are you mad at? So, but I will also say that people are being like you are getting a reputation for being difficult. The reality is I'm an activist that learned how to make films. I didn't go to film school. I didn't make films because I want to be at Sundance or whatever. I'm an activist and I know that making films gives me a platform to speak on the things that I care about. Now, when I have brought the arts movement into the UN, I'm really a pioneer in bringing poets and beatboxers and hip hop and everything. And then all of a sudden you hijack what I've been building and you turn it into something that I am disgusted by. I'm not just going to sit by and let it happen. So I speak out. But I will also say this happened when I was speaking out against what is called poverty porn or the white savior narrative, where fundraisers, nonprofits, NGOs would use the African child with the big belly and the flies in the eyes to raise money. It was a harmful type of storytelling, and I spoke up against it. People were mad at me then because I was challenging the narratives that were bringing them money, right? And then fast forward, I was a pioneer. So it's like if you're at the forefront of a movement before other people understand it, you could be labeled as somebody who's difficult or, whatever they want to call me, blacklist me, do whatever they want. But in 3, 5, 4, 5 years from now, they may say, oh, you were at the beginning of that. You were speaking up about that before anybody else was. And again, this goes back to the whole systems change thing. If I call out, like this white Danish woman for hijacking my career and then destroying what I had built because you have more power, you have more money, you have more whatever, I'm looking at you and I'm like, you are not authentic in this at all. You think this is fun. Like you want to be part of the cool kids club. And I think it has to do with people's insecurities, but not recognizing that what we do is a craft. So you're diluting the potential of what is possible because you don't know what you're doing. This isn't your expertise, you know? And so, yeah, I'm fighting a big system right now around the creative economy, around artist representation, the whole thing, and people are not happy. But now I have this whole group of artists who are like, yeah, we're with you. We feel exploited. We don't feel like we're seen. We're not getting paid. And meanwhile, people at British Council are they bring in $630 million a year and they won't pay a Kenyan artist to come to a 7-day workshop.
See,
Like,
that's ridiculous.
mhm.
That is ridiculous. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's ridiculous. I
Yep.
and I get like being the renegade, I get
Mm.
that. That's why I just did that with my eye.
Right.
I do get it. Because at my job they call me a rebel. And I'm like, it's not that I'm a rebel. I just see the way things are. And I'm like, hey guys, I don't think this makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, for example, I'm at IKEA and they're trying to squeeze a 12-man operation on four people now. We're down to four people in our area. That's insanity.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, that's
Yeah.
and then they complain like listen guys,
Why
like
are
we
you
we
being a
gotta think about
troublemaker?
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know what I also told people recently? I said the reason why we're in the position we're in as the human population a lot of times is because people don't have backbone. And oftentimes, at least in America, under the guise of being what I would consider to be like a luxurious slave. You got all these
Yep.
luxuries, the illusion of luxury, and you're bathing in that illusion of luxury that could easily be stripped away from you from any time. You know, at least
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna stick with these luxuries, at least have it in a space where you know there's true freedom, where you can actually
Yep.
almost do not exactly what you want to do, but still do things that are not so controlled, you know? So I just think people are
Absolutely.
very interesting in the choices they make, but the future will show us soon what's up. That brings me to my next question of please enlighten our audience on artsenvoy.ai.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, how will I tell this story? So 2 years ago on International Women's Day, there was a report released that was talking about gender bias in technology. And they were mentioning AI. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make an AI film. I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to make an AI film. So I made this AI film called We, the AI Women of the United Nations, descending upon the UN and rewriting the UN Charter so that they would be recognized in whatever. So it was kind of a sci-fi ish kind of whatever. People loved it. They had a lot of things to say about it. And then I started to realize, wow, I could make an entire film from the comfort of my own home without having a camera, with no microphone, with no tripod, without getting on a flight, without anything. I could just make a film with my fingertips and my imagination. And I thought, imagine what could happen if you give young women, African artists, advocates that fight for climate justice, the ability to tell stories without needing a lot of money for funding or without needing the approval of a gatekeeper. Imagine if you were just like, whatever your imagination says, make that film, make that piece of art. Do you want to make a film in outer space? Make the film in outer space. You want to make a film underwater, 500 years in the future, 300 years in the past? You can make this film, whatever imagination you have. So now there's a lot of concerns ethically which are valid, like the environmental impact, how AI is trained, on intellectual property. But the ability to elevate these voices and these stories is incredible. And if you are a creative practitioner and you get your hands on some of these tools, most
Mm-hmm.
of the people I hear who criticize AI or creative AI are not actually utilizing it or experimenting with it. But
Mm,
I'm big on access. And even for myself, I didn't want to work in Hollywood. I wrote a Hollywood recognized feature length script that I wanted to get produced, but how am I going to get it produced unless I raise, $5 million? But
mm,
I guarantee in the next year I could tell this story with AI from
mm,
my home studio. So
interesting.
yeah, the ability for anybody to tell their story. I wrote my poetry memoir. I wrote that book initially over 10 years, chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter. I
Mm-hmm.
started to feel like it was too heavy, too like it just wasn't what I wanted. So I fed some of these stories into AI and I reprompt it to make it more poetry focused. And I love my memoir. I love it now. I feel like it really captures
It's a great one.
my, yeah, my experiences. I'm not even done. Like I need to do a version two, but I love how it came out. And I probably wouldn't have even finished it if I didn't have AI because I can't sit for 3 months and focus on a book.
Hmm,
It's just a lot.
interesting. I'm actually getting ready to start writing a book pretty soon.
I will
The title is
give you
called,
some pointers to make it fast to help you.
yeah, I
Sitting
got
and
you. I'm going
and
to
writing
a writing
is
class tonight.
okay, good.
The thing is, I may have to write it out. The reason
Mhm.
why I'm saying that is because, so the book is called Paradox, The Psychological Philosophies and
Mm,
Memoir of Troy Alexander Holmes, right? Which is my real name. That's why I had to say it real fast.
yeah,
But basically, I'm creating something called psychological philosophies. It's the first of its kind. You're blending psychology with philosophy, and you're interfusing it into one to cause this kind of line that I want to teeter on
yeah,
of like how psychologically, I've seen certain things and endured certain things, but I have a philosophy about what I've endured. Plus, I've read a lot of psychology books, and I do want to challenge certain aspects because some of them I feel like were written inside closets, if you get what I'm saying. Like, did you go outside when you wrote this book? Because
right.
this book, so I had to really like, think about that. But
Yeah.
regardless of that, I can definitely thank you for your I don't want to not acknowledge the help, excuse me, that you offered. And so I want to say I am open to any advice that you have as well. I don't think I
Well,
know
I'm
you
going to
in one
just
way,
because
shape,
I
or
know I'm going
form.
to forget, I'm just going to say it right now.
Okay.
So, a way that you could expedite your book writing is to have somebody interview you, the right person interview you, then take your audio, feed it through a sound to text platform. It will spit it out. So you're talking naturally. You're also talking faster than you can write. And then you use AI to then write the text and then you go and you edit it.
Hey, I know what I'm about to say is gonna sound. I'll give you the choice. I'm kind of thirsty, like, and
Yeah,
I
okay.
am dehydrated. Do you mind if I just quickly get some water? You can talk to the
Not
audience
at
if you
all.
feel like it.
Sure.
Please, I'll
Sure. I
make
don't even
this
know who's here.
really fast. Give me one
Okay.
second.
Do your thing. I do not know who is here, but hi. Let's see. Am I able to see this? Nope. I don't know who's here. Anyway, hi. Maybe if somebody wants to write in the chat. Okay, or we'll wait. But love this interview so far. Like, I like having interviews with people that I feel like are just easy and nice and it doesn't feel too formal. We're just kind of having a conversation. This is how I actually do my interviews for my own film. So I like it. But I am getting tired. It's what time here? It's 10, almost 11 here, I think. But where are you guys? Anybody who's watching, feel free to write in the chat. Where are you calling in from? I see Linda. Oh, here we go. Now I see. I was trying to see who's in this chat, but I couldn't see it very well. So I need to tell you, it's almost 11 o'clock here.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I could do this all day, but I am getting tired. Um,
Okay. I apologize for having to run off like that. So I
no,
have
that's
just about
okay.
like,
I
okay, like,
talk a lot, so it's probably, yeah.
I can shorten it, no problem. Give me one second. There are certain things. So what I'll ask is, I actually like roughly 10 to 12 more questions. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's a lot,
Okay.
but it's okay. Yes, yes, but
Okay.
no, it's good for me to know. And then I can, you know, yeah,
Okay. So I did write out a lot of questions because you just had some amazing like points and amazing stories. So I really did enjoy that
great.
100%. So what I wanted to ask is how do you think AI would impact our lives as a whole? Like in terms of, because I see that people are against it, some people are for it, but at the same time, I think the interesting part about the whole thing is like with human, people think that because I own human, I'm trying to necessarily go against AI. When the truth is,
Right.
what I want to do is meet AI in the middle for cohabitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with that. And I think that AI is going to be a reflection of our society, and our society is really messed up. So if we want to
Mm,
fix AI, I think we have to fix our society. I think that you can't expect to have responsible, ethical AI and then have the world that we're in right now. And secondly,
mm,
this is also why I encourage people to make stories and feed stories into AI, because I think of it like as a little baby brain, right? And the way that this brain gets developed depends on the influences that it receives. So if it's only receiving negative, harmful, whatever, it's going to be influenced by that. But if we, from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different whatever, are using AI and telling stories, especially not just being like, where do I go to fix my car, what like technical stuff, but actually feeding stories, you know what I mean? Then
mm,
I feel like we're creating a more well-rounded baby's brain AI. And so I feel like women, people of color, young people, people from the global south all need to be actively engaging with it.
mm,
And
mm,
those who say, "Oh, but it's bad for the environment, it's this, it's that." I think the market is going to fix those things before it's going to fix gender and racial equality. So I'm more for
mm,
get this into the hands of the people that have diverse perspectives and different cultures and everything. And the market will fix the other stuff because it's a money making industry. They're going to fix the stuff that people are complaining about. But if you're, as a mostly white, cis, male community, telling everybody else not to use it, or like a lot of white women are being like, it's irresponsible that you're, then you are keeping, sorry,
no, that's
I'm
fine.
just thinking of this one woman that was just so nasty to me on LinkedIn. But anyway, you're keeping people from, and they're mostly conscious, do-gooders that are going to be like, no, you're right, it's bad for the planet. Let me not do AI, and then their voices or their stories are not integrated,
Mm,
and then again it
mm,
becomes one-sided. So yeah,
mm. Interesting. I So for the negative and positive impacts of AI, I could kind of see there's one thing I wanted to point out to you that I do honestly see as a negative, and I say this in other interviews as well. The reason why I keep repeating it is because I want people to keep it in their mind.
yeah,
Nowadays, I'll be talking to kids, younger kids from time to time, and they're like, "Oh, this AI thing, it just wrote the essay for me and did this and did that for me." And I'm like, well, what are you doing for yourself? Because if you're constantly relying on this to do things for you, the part of reason of why our brain evolves is because of the challenge that it's met with to have to break
yeah,
past certain like mental modes. Now, I know we can't do everything. I'm not asking anybody to do that, but I'm asking people to be mindful of how much they're allowing themselves to use it without challenging themselves first.
yeah,
Even when it
yeah,
comes to editing, let's say if I give it to AI to edit, I take it back and I re-edit it again to apply that human touch. But I'll also be honest, for human, I try my best not to use AI because I want
hmm,
human to be human powered.
that
Purely in
makes
the
sense.
future, I want it to only be human powered. That's it.
Right,
There's
right,
and if it is use of AI, it's like at a 5% rate. Like it's barely
yeah,
used because I do believe in the power of the human mind.
yeah.
And I do believe in the phases of evolution that we can go through when challenges are implemented.
Well, the
So,
only thing I would say about that is that I also think some people assume that you're not being creative, or you're not problem solving, or you're not facing challenges when you are using AI. Like, I'm
mm,
more creative in using AI and reprompting and figuring out what I want than I am without it. So I think there's also a conversation we need to have, like exactly what kind of AI are you talking about? Is it, I'm just going to ask it to write me an essay about this thing, and you're right, it can spit out generic, whatever. Most people at this point can tell when it's AI written. But if you're in it making films and you're in it creating scenes and you're in it creating storylines and dialogue and like all of this stuff, it's not an easy push a button and it's finished. Like there is work that goes into it. And I also just want to say, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can either choose to use AI, you can choose not to use AI. We can have films that are made with AI, we can have films that are not made with AI. I don't think the way the conversation goes, sometimes it feels like it's either all or nothing. And I don't think we need that. Just like photographers were upset about digital cameras, DSLRs that came out, there are now people who still shoot on film, and there are people who are great photographers using digital cameras. I think thinking of AI as a tool in that way can reshift the conversation, that it's a tool. And real artists, I don't think are just doing a little bit here and there, like they're really in it. It requires a different part of like your creativity and your psyche to re-prompt and know what you're looking for. In fact, somebody mentioned, I think this is true, it's like AI is like an editor's medium, and you're essentially becoming a curator of shots and images that you like. So your taste has to be strong. You have to know what you want and know what you like. And that isn't just point a camera, see what you get. It's like intentional, if that makes sense. There's a great interview with, I don't like to quote celebrities, but Ben Affleck did a really great interview on AI in Hollywood, and I think he was spot on. So check that out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, when it comes to AI, I believe it's a complex. Like for me, it's complex. Because I worked with an AI company. I'm still drifting in their backyard, so they required us to learn prompt engineering and things of that nature. And then I started hearing.
Yeah.
So my issue, I think, is when it starts to take away people's jobs, like what it's doing now. A lot of people are about to be out of jobs. Obviously, that's also human decisions. It's not like AI's fault. It's human decisions that's behind how we're choosing to use that and how that's going to impact people. And even art, to a degree, I believe, has been impacted. I've seen a lot of artists that were online that were like, they spent their livelihood learning how to draw, learning how to paint. And now,
But I want to see, this is what I want to address. So first of all, I need to look at the statistics that yes, we're losing a lot of jobs, but we're also creating a lot of new jobs. So it's like pivoting skill sets, right? So it's not removing things without, there's a lot of new AI driven jobs. And secondly, AI doesn't steal art. What AI does is it analyzes an image and it trains itself to understand how to mimic that style. To me, it's no different than the million Basquiat imitators who essentially just look at a Basquiat painting. You've seen them. I know you've seen them.
Funny, yes, I have.
They will look
From
at a
Brooklyn.
Basquiat painting and they will study it, and they'll know the crown. They'll know, the stick figures and the different, and they'll mimic Basquiat. Well, AI is just doing that at a hyper fast speed, but it's the same thing. It's anybody. So if we're going to come down on AI for training its models on other work, we also have to think about all the copycat Basquiats too. It's the same thing.
It is. It is. I mean, I can't disagree with that. I'm not trying to be like, hey, I don't mess with AI because I use AI little bit to little. That's just me. I don't need
Yeah.
to. I don't have a purpose to use it too much, in my opinion. But other people use it more, and I don't come out and be like, hey, like this is
Hate it,
crazy.
I
Don't
love it.
use it.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
like, we just need
I
to learn
bring
how
it
to
because
cohabitate with it.
exactly. And also there's a
Coexist with
lot
it.
of
That's the word.
misinformation about it. So I usually want to address these things because people say,
Mm,
oh, it's stealing artist jobs, or it's doing this, it's doing that. And it's like even compared to my job, Is my carbon footprint bigger if I jump on a long haul flight, jump in a UN SUV, drive to a village, get out my equipment that's eventually going to become e-waste, come all the way
Mm.
back, edit the film, versus me making a film in 2 days in my house without ever leaving? What's the bigger carbon footprint? I don't know. But we're not having those conversations. They just want to, the go-to is AI filmmaking is unethical, it's bad for the planet. It's just, I'm like, I had a big carbon footprint as a UN filmmaker, huge. So I don't know yet what the difference is between an AI making an AI film and making a regular film. And for all the stuff that's talking about how much computing and energy and water to cool data sets and all of that stuff, eventually we might be saving energy because we're going to cut down on transportation. We're going to be cutting down on a lot of different things, efficiency wise. The stuff that's happening in medicine, like I heard that they're creating these AI like things that they can stick in your blood, and then it can go through your blood system and then figure out where there's built up cholesterol and this and that. It can take snapshots of this or whatever. I mean, it's just remarkable.
Mm. I think I've heard about that
So
too,
I'm
the way
intrigued by
AI
it.
technology.
I'm intrigued by it, and I'm not 100% yay, go AI or whatever. There are concerns that we have to consider, but like I said, I really feel AI is a reflection of our society, and our society is the problem. It's
Hmm.
so bad right now.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But to continue, because I know that you're
Yes.
tired and I want to be
Uh-huh.
respectful of your time,
Thank
I
you.
wanted to ask, in your opinion, how does truth and healing coincide?
That's interesting. Um, I think we are programmed so much to put out an image or an idea that we think is acceptable by society, and that may not be that may not be truthful. So
Mm.
when you live your life hiding behind a lie, a false persona, or whatever, I think it eats at you. And when you finally get brave enough to tell your story authentically and truthfully, no matter how difficult it was, no matter your past or whatever, it's like a release, like a healthy release. So I feel that, like I told you before, I would never want to talk about being poor and being with a schizophrenic grandma and this whole thing. But I realized the more that I told those stories, it gave license to other people to tell their stories. And because
Mm.
I think for so long I was misdiagnosed as a very well-spoken, educated, probably I've had so many people be like, oh, you must have come from a good family. I was like, you would not believe the shit that I've been through. Excuse me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting too comfortable with you. I'm
It's
just
fine.
talking to you like you're my
No,
friend.
that's perfectly fine. Just like the only thing I ask is don't do the sailor move. Like I had one guy, every other word was a curse word, and it got really
No,
intense.
right,
But
right.
if it's once in
No,
a while,
it's
that's
slipping.
fine. Like you're
Yeah,
human,
it's
you're good.
slipping. It's slipping.
You're good.
Yeah, so I would answer that question in that way, that I think when you are your truest self, you feel the most healed.
Okay, okay. When you're true with yourself, you feel the most healed. That is beautiful. Now, let me take this in a different direction. I did promise that I would bring up the book, and I wanted to stay true to my word. But I'll start
Okay.
off by saying that I did read that stories without struggle are propaganda, but stories without dignity
Without
are,
dignity or
are
violence.
violence. So I thought that was just an amazing line. Can you give us some more insight as to what was like the thought process behind that? How would you define it? I mean, of course, it is your words.
Yeah.
So definitely interested in hearing that.
Yeah, no, when I was talking about storytelling without dignity is violence, it really, to me, is
Mm,
that level of responsibility that comes with being a storyteller of other people's stories. And
mm,
if you become careless, you are doing harm. And so that is, again, why I said storytelling is powerful, and with great power comes great responsibility, and that you must do the internal work to ensure that you are not inciting violence. And so if you continue to read that poem, there's I think it's that poem where it's like, so I stopped telling stories about people as problems, but as constellations where they bring joy and pain. And so you're looking at, because I always talk a lot about the best type of storytelling in my world is one that is not, oh, those poor people in Africa with the big bellies, the like doom and gloom, or what we call poverty porn. But the answer is also not to tell stories about poor people smiling. There's got to be like a multi-dimensional look at people, because that's who we are. We're not one or the other. And learning how to be a craftsman when it comes, because everybody throws out the word storyteller all the time in my world. Storyteller, I'm a storyteller, I'm doing this and whatever, but it's a craft. And I think you have to take it as, it's not just standing on stage and being like, this is this, that, whatever. It's like, really, when you're a professional storyteller telling stories about other people, it is your responsibility to actually know story structure and actually practice it as a craft.
Mm. Mm. And to rhyme with that, funny part, violence. The next question ends with silence. So what is the cost of that? What is the cost of silence? Right? I think that right there, another one just really hit home. I really was
Yeah.
feeling it, so I just wanted to hear your perspective on these things. It's just, wow. It's great work.
I mean, yeah, I think that if you bear witness to something that needs to be brought to light or needs to be revealed and you stay quiet, you are doing an immense amount of harm. And that's why, again, I appreciate like activists and people that speak truth to power, because you're shining light on something that impacts a lot of people's lives and livelihoods. And to stay quiet is not a responsible way to handle stories.
Mm.
If I made a film and I came back and I showed my film and then I stayed quiet about the revelation that I made, then it's like, am I really a storyteller, or am I exploiting people's livelihoods for my own personal gain?
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, to bear witness is a responsibility. And if you put yourself in areas where you are witness to very serious stuff, war, conflict, suffering, discrimination, whatever, and you stay silent, you are part of the problem.
Mm. Mm. I'm gonna be honest with you, this interview has been profound. I'm just,
I know, I'm loving it too. I'm loving it too. When I come
I
back
wanted
to
to
New York,
continue.
we're going to go grab lunch. We're going to hang out. Like, I
Yeah,
would love to talk to you more.
thank
Yeah.
you. I really do appreciate that. I'm in Texas
Mm-hmm.
now, but I have to go up there anyway to
That's
visit my
right.
grandma.
I forgot. Yeah. Yes.
But I wanted to ask because I really want to stay true to my word. Like, so it's probably like two, three more questions is what we'll do. But
Okay.
I'll be like, how does one soul become fractured? Is there a way to cure one soul from this fracture?
Yeah. Yeah. Souls definitely can become fractured when you do not acknowledge and heal the wounds that you have. I've
Mm,
known I attract the broken souls, the fractured souls. They gravitate towards me. And I remember asking this question one time, like, why am I constantly attracting these people? Am I, is that who I am? Like, am I attracting like attracts like or whatever? And somebody said it very clearly. They're like, no, you don't attract people who are like you. You attract people who want what you have or
mm,
who need what you have. So if you have a bright spirit, you can sometimes attract people who are really dark that need that bright. They want to have that bright spirit. They need it. And so then you find yourself being this bright soul, this bright spirit surrounded by really dark people. And you're like, how does this happen? And we talked about this earlier on in the interview of being more conscious of being an empath or being a certain type of personality where you can attract people. And I was really bad at boundaries before. I'm really good now, but I was really bad at boundaries before because I wanted to like be around everybody and make the world a better place and be good to everybody. And then I realized I was drowning trying to save other people.
Oh my God, I'm just going to streamline into the next question because when you said save the world, what does it mean to be to be an empath, or what does it mean to be the empath who wanted to save the world? Like that title just that could have been a whole movie. That was just really,
Yeah,
really good. It's profound. Another title master, I'm what I call a title master. When I come up with titles, they are strong and they stick. So I
yeah,
just
yeah,
really
yeah.
wanted to um just ask you about that. Like, what does it mean to even be an empath that wants to save the world? Like, it's great.
Yeah, well, the first few lines of that poem is like, kids collect rocks, I collect pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I run towards the heavy stuff. I want to be around the real life stuff. And so that that is an empath in me who wanted to save the world. But I think as I got older, it really wasn't about saving the world. It was a reflection of me wanting to be saved myself, or wanting to be seen and heard in a way that I didn't feel I was when I was young. Like, I was really traumatized when I think back about what I went through. And instead of being like, I'm just going to close myself off and I'm going to deal with these traumas in my life, I kind of became the person that wanted to heal everybody. Oh, you're in pain? I know I was in pain. I didn't get somebody to save me or help me, so I'm going to help you and help you and help you and help you and help you. Like, it's amazing the amount of pain I can actually absorb from other people's experiences and not break. Like, a lot.
Mm.
Like, the world's heaviest stuff I consume like on a regular basis, and I'm able to keep going. But I do feel that it is less about wanting to save the world than it is about wanting other people to not go through what I went through.
Mm. I really respect that perspective. I can resonate with that. I feel the same
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Like I oftentimes want to almost save people from themselves
yeah,
and be like, hey, like don't go down that path because I already went down that path. But one thing you said before was boundaries. I officially have my boundaries in place to where I can only go but so far in terms of trying to, help you out.
yep.
Yeah, because
The
I
other
done burnt myself out.
thing that I want to say about that too is I learned something. So I used to work for this organization that worked with HIV positive young people before there was AIDS medications to cure them. And we went to speaking engagements, we went to high schools, we went to all this stuff. And some of these kids got it from their moms. It was passed down from their moms. Some of them had blood transplants or whatever. But we would go to these schools and talk, and it would always be the kid who was like the outcast or the quiet one who would be the first to be like, I want to help. I want to be part of it. It's always the like kids in pain who want to be, who want to help the most, because this is at a time too where young people who are HIV positive were still being like stigmatized. And then here you have somebody that, you can tell like doesn't take care of themselves physically. There's something in
Wrong.
that they're struggling with, and they're the first ones that want to come volunteer.
Mm.
So it's almost like the broken one, not the broken, the people who've been through the most pain are sometimes our biggest empaths, I think, because they want to cure that pain that they had
Mm.
for somebody else. And then that relieves it for them.
Healing others in turns heals themselves in a way.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, you still got to do a deep dive, but it is part of that journey to rehabilitate yourself internally, you know?
Because you understand, like, in a way, you understand. and maybe especially if you have grown or you've healed somewhat, you may see the pain that you were in somebody else and want to help them, you know?
Mhm. I do understand. I do. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to say above all, I read this. It's like, above all, Lisa believes in this. Art saves lives. And now more than ever, artists must be at the center of building a better world. And I wanted to say, why do you believe so? I mean, you've expressed it multitudes of times throughout the interview, but I just wanted to single that part out towards the end of this interview to really just leave a message, you know what I'm saying, about just artistry and how it can save the world and why it's important,
Yes,
you know. So,
I believe that deeply. I believe that deeply. And I believe that partly, I wouldn't say completely all, I believe that partly because humanity is at its best when we feel compassion and when we feel something. And art elicits emotions. You can sit in a room and hear statistics, which is what happens at the UN, about the number of people that are suffering or the planet is doing this and whatever, whatever. But you hear a real story or you're moved and then you want to act or you want to do something. Like I talk about this research study from a professor at Princeton. I told you that the brainwaves of a storyteller, he found out, sync up with the people listening to the story. So without any physical touch, a poet, a musician, a powerful speaker has the ability to get everybody in the room literally on the same wavelength, right? Same wavelength. Now, we've all felt that because we've been at concerts, we've been at poetry slams, we've been in spaces where the whole crowd is like in unison.
hmm
Now, package that and say, okay, let's put that towards healing, like some of the harm that's going on in the world. Like, I mean, this is a random thought, but I feel like war is so old school. Like, it's so outdated. Like, why do we even have war? It's weird to me. And yet we have so many wars, right? Like, let just people live their lives. Like, take your land, let us have our land or whatever. Let people just live their lives. But we're literally killing people all over the world. It's so weird to me. Like, it feels like
mm,
this is something we should have gotten rid of a long
years
time
ago.
ago. Yeah, years ago. And so here we're, I'm sorry, it's going to show my political beliefs, but we're watching a genocide happen in Gaza, and there is nothing we can do about it. Nothing.
Mm,
It is continuing, it's getting worse. And despite the people that are speaking up and whatever, we're getting silenced, we're getting imprisoned, we're getting incarcerated. We're like, it's just crazy to me. But I do feel that if you are a powerful artist, not by numbers, but by the impact that you have on people, you can mobilize, like I said, you can mobilize people to do the right thing, you can mobilize them to do the wrong thing. And if we had more artists in policymaking spaces who are the good people,
mm,
then they can send this out into the world and we can mobilize all these people in the community to work towards a better world. They say that we're at the age of enlightenment and that there's going to be a larger and larger divide between those who are who are aware, enlightened, awakened, whatever, and those who are not. And that's where this friction is happening because we're having a stronger divide. So I don't know what should probably do more research, what the outcome of that is going to be. But I do feel that if artists were involved in policy, if artists ran the UN, if artists were whatever, and we're so driven by emotion and expression and free thinking and all of that, I just think it would, and maybe artists are also not as, some are motivated by money, but maybe they're motivated by their passion, by their craft, by their art, just maybe different.
yep.
I don't know,
Yeah, a lot of yeah, I think money is sometimes a big deterrent in terms of how people go about doing things, you know. I've seen
for
so many
sure.
people fall victim to the dollar.
Yeah.
I don't charge for people to come on human, but I do have something
Mm,
on the back end that people could pay for, but it's optional. I'm not gonna say that right now. That's like whatever, but it's optional.
okay.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I also sell
Yeah.
shirts, right? So it's
Perfect.
like, hey,
Exactly.
there are ways to have integrity while still making money. And I think that leads back to what I was saying about people, even though this is a little bit different from what I said before, but I'll just reiterate it, like people putting money before people and
Mhm.
how that kind of works and how now in this case it's like money before artistry
Yeah.
when you could have had a purpose for that art, but you decided to go for the money. So you changed the trajectory of what that piece was supposed to be and what it was supposed to speak in turn to trade it off for financial gain. It's crazy
Mhm.
how they have us underneath the spell of
Yeah.
money.
But you know, your process is exactly what I'm teaching artists here, which is music doesn't make money anymore unless you are supported by a big label or
And
whatever. These
even
streaming
then,
platforms are horrible, right? And also, you know, filmmakers are struggling because unless you're like getting funds to make these big films, but you do something like write a book or create a clothing line, you have something that you can go do your speaking, go do your film screening, do whatever, and be like, if you want to support me, buy my book, buy my shirt, buy whatever. This is actually, and then the art becomes like the I don't want to say the tool, but it becomes the flavor to
mm,
the product, which is the one making the money instead of the art making the money,
mm,
if that makes
mm,
sense.
there's a flavor to the product. And part of you said the one making it money instead of the art making money. Am I correct?
So the product
If I leave that
makes
so.
the money, the art pulls you. Like we're no longer monetizing the art. The art is sacred or whatever you want to call it.
I get
But the
what you're
art
saying.
is pulling you in. And then to keep
You
the
have
commercial part
products.
of it to make money, you have a product. So the
Yep.
art pulls you into this. So, for example, this Nigerian musician that I'm working with, we're like, we're not going to put this song on Spotify. We're just not going to do it. We're going to
Mm,
create what's called a sustainability store, have a bunch of solar powered stuff, eco friendly paints or whatever. Every time you buy something that's good for the planet, you get a free copy of the song. So, like, people are going to buy stuff, whether or not you want to promote consumerism or not, you might as well promote responsible consumerism.
true. That was actually really good. That was like spot
Yeah,
on. And
right.
as I promised you, this is the end of the interview. But one last question, the one that I ask everybody at the end, is what does being human mean to you?
What does human being mean to you?
What
What does
does
human?
being
I think it
human mean to you?
means. I think it means being completely. What's the word I'm looking for? Like just authentic in both your your strengths, but also being vulnerable about your weaknesses because that vulnerability is power. Like people may gravitate more towards you when you're honest and open about your life, your experiences, your struggles, or whatever, than to always put on like a facade.
Mm,
So being human is embracing all of it. Like nobody is perfect, but how you choose to deal with your hurt, your pain, your abuse, your whatever it is, reveals who you are spiritually as a human being in this world, something like that. I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm a little dizzy.
I could see. That's why I was like, you know what? I wanted to thank you. First and foremost, before we
Likewise.
depart, I want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I also have to thank someone else who's not here, but I'll still give him a proper shout out because he's the one that actually directed me to you.
Oh,
A good friend of mine by the name of Chandra, also known as Shakur. So I don't know
nice.
how y'all two connected, but he was like, I think this lady would be a really good person for you to connect with and interview. And I was like, okay. So I went and took a look, and here we are
Love it.
now. Somebody said
Mhm.
it was a beautiful convo. I'm just writing a thank you. But if you would
Oh,
like
thanks, you
to,
guys.
if
Oh,
you would,
Overland. Yes. What's up, guys? These are my people.
yes, indeed.
Yes.
would you
We
like
share
to
similar
list
passion.
would you like to list where people can find you at, things of that nature? For those who will be watching this interview as like a recorded, version instead of the live. So please
Yeah,
let people know
sure.
where they can find
I
you,
appreciate
things of
that.
that nature.
Thank
You
you.
will?
Yeah,
No problem.
no, you can find me like I use Lisa Russell Film or Films quite a bit, but my AI stuff is called artsenvoy.ai. And I also wrote a book, and my book has been doing well. It was bestseller #1 in Asian American poetry and biographies of social activists. So if you want to support me, you can order my book, leave me an honest review. Um, yeah, I think that's it. And if you're an artist yourself and you want to join some of the stuff that I'm doing, we really need a strong artist community that is not afraid to speak up for the arts community, whether it's the UN space or whatever. And I hope you and I stay in touch because I would love to bring you to the UN space. I would love to, yeah, absolutely. You're fantastic. And I really wish the best for your human.world platform because you're onto something. And yeah.
Very much. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Well, I would like to thank you first and foremost for coming on, being authentic, vulnerable, very educated, and being willing to share some of the difficult parts of what it takes to be an international filmmaker that has covered so much ground and so
Mm,
many different types of forms of turmoil, but have also caught the beauty within that, to bring that to the forefront for people to see. I wish you nothing but success with your continued ventures and the
thank
directions
you.
that you're going. And I pray for us to also stay in contact. I did kind of say
We
that
will.
before. For
Yeah.
sure. Actually, I know you're tired. Well, you know what? Let me not say that here. But I will
You
speak
can
with
tell my
you.
eyes are
Yes,
like,
I will speak to you very soon. For those of you who are watching and tuning in just at the ending, this will be out in the next 48 hours for sure, because I too
wow.
am tired. Yeah, on Instagram, it'll definitely be out in the next 48 hours. I do prioritize that despite of everything else got going on. And then also, yeah, let's just connect. But one thing I like to
I would
say, as
love
I
to.
usually do, any
Yeah.
final words for from you to the audience?
Thank you all, and please support this. Do you call it a podcast? No.
No,
How
I
do you
call it
define it?
it's a platform and global community.
Okay, platform and global community.
Hmm.
Also check out the website. I mean, one of the things I love is the V in human,
Thank
first of all, and then I also love the website. But yeah,
you.
come support. Obviously, you put in a lot of time and energy into all of this, and you're really good at what you're doing. You do need to get on a radio station or something like WBAI, start there or start one of your local radios because this needs to be accessible to as many people as possible. What you're doing is really important. And
Thank
you
you.
have the story to back it up. You're not just like, let me just launch this radio program, whatever. It's authentic.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Mhm.
I really do appreciate those kind words, and maybe we could figure out a way to collaborate. I do have a lot of people just for people to give some insight as to what's coming. There are people
Yeah.
who are willing to step in and start filming some of the interviews in person, and they want campfire sessions. For those of you who are curious about campfire sessions, you can definitely find that on our website, but it's a global discussion between multitude of people around the world. And we're also this year trying to figure out how to kick that off and bring that into person to where we'll be doing campfire sessions around the world, like places like Greece,
Love it.
Africa, different places around the world to represent that place very well and also continue sticking to the main mantra, which is talking about subject matters that either affect us now or have impacted us through the span of our existence as humans. Without
Love it.
further ado, though, I just want to say thank you again. And to those watching, you know how it usually goes. Remember, we are all human and much
Man,
love.
love it.
Thank
Love it.
you so much.
All
I'll
right.
be in contact.
Bye.
See you. Bye
Please.
bye.
Yes, let's have a follow up. I would love that.
Yes, I will right now.